He watched his homeland burn to ash, died a hero, and fate pulled a twisted joke reincarnating him as royalty on the enemy side. Now trapped in the body of the third heir to the very nation that slaughtered everyone he loved, every smile at court feels like a betrayal. Every royal banquet conceals a dagger, and the only path to salvation is to rot this kingdom from the inside out. In this snake pit, a poisonous grin cuts deeper than a sword. Survival is the only game. Let's see how an enemy prince rewrites history. It was literal hell on earth. If the underworld had a physical location, this was it. Mounds of butchered corpses littered the landscape. Our hero was gasping for air, terror written all over his face. Suddenly, a young man, riddled with arrows like a pincushion, stumbled toward him, forcing a weak smile. "Burn, my prince," he whispered, before collapsing dead on the blood-soaked dirt. Panic surged through the protagonist. He spun toward Chase, who was shaking violently, his voice cracking as he admitted that tragically, this sacrifice was the only way to repay the debt. Burn started screaming his name, paralyzed by sheer horror, but Chase cut him off, begging him to grip his sword tighter and never surrender. With those final words, the life faded from his eyes and he hit the ground, stone still. Burn stared into the void and screamed his friend's name. Crushed by grief, he snatched up his blade and let out a guttural roar. Flashback to where it started. A nation called Kairos, forged by dragons and humans, demanded tribute. That was the timeline. In the present, he threw himself into the fray, slashing through knights with feral agility, moving faster than the eye could track, fueled by blinding rage because Secretia had refused to bow. Burn spun around, grinding his teeth, bracing for the agony as his arm was clean, severed from his body. That moment marked the start of the war and the absolute end of his nation. Yet, he kept fighting with the same intensity, one-armed and alone. The hero was the younger brother of Secretia's king. An enemy warrior shouted that only one rat remained. Glory to Kyrus. A hand, wreathed in arcane energy, shot up, and the battlefield was bathed in blinding, fiery light. He knew it was checkmate, and death was welcoming him with open arms, but the memory of his fallen comrade sparked a fire in his gut. No giving up. They weren't taking him down that easy. He gripped his sword and started swinging. He was Secretia's unwavering blade. Suddenly, enemies emerged from the acrid smoke, circling him like vultures. It was the magical alliance of the Kairos Falcon, led by the man who started this whole mess, the Mad King of Kairos. That's when Arsene, the Valkyrie Archmage, stepped forward, pulling back his hood, and announcing what a pleasure this was. He asked for a name. Warrior Burn spat back, that he'd already buried his name in the dust. He took a sharp step, launched himself into the air, and roared that he was nothing but a sword serving his king. With that, he dove straight at his executioner. Arsene just smirked, flared his magic, and said he'd remember the Prince of Secretia. And just like that, he fired a beam of pure magical destruction, vaporizing the protagonist. Burn looked at his blood-stained hands, watching his life and the fall of his kingdom flash before his eyes. Then the light faded, and sometime later, he snapped awake in a completely different reality. Servants were calling him, "Your Highness," saying it was time to get up. A servant named Ian rang a bell, asking if he slept well. Right then, a maid appeared with a breakfast tray. He bolted upright in bed, eyes wide with terror, while his subordinate mentioned that he needed to hustle because Prince Plants had already left. He grabbed his head and started screaming, "What? Plants?" He frantically checked his arms, brain unable to process why his hands were still attached. The subordinate shrieked in panic. "What? Don't say such awful things. Why would your hand be cut off? Was this some twisted nightmare?" The maid stood there, totally confused, watching the scene unfold. The protagonist clawed at his face, shouting in frustration. The servant asked what was wrong. He was spiraling, thinking of the name of the man, who he hated with every fiber of his soul. His hand was fine, and a servant he'd never seen before was standing right there. Alien memories, stuff he never lived through, started flooding his brain. He grabbed his head and demanded, "Tell me who I am." Servant Ian leaned in, totally baffled. "Excuse me? You are Callian Rain Kairos, the third prince of Kairos." He stared at his palms, realizing this was like living his worst nightmare. His hands wouldn't stop shaking as he asked, "Kairos? How is this even possible? What was going on?" He spun around and shouted, "What's the date today?" The servant replied, "April 28th. Callian pressed, "Then what year is it?" The reply came, "Year 522, Your Highness." Something felt glitchy. He realized it instantly. This couldn't be real life. That meant the clock had rewound 10 whole years before the apocalypse started. The war had ignited over the time axis, a bizarre artifact, rumored to literally hit the reset button on reality. It spawned in Secretia's palace out of nowhere, and naturally, the tea spilled across the entire world. The continent's top predator, the Kalis Empire, was thirsty for it. During a family dinner, the vibe shifted when Kalis demanded the axis be handed over. Yeah, right. Impossible. Didn't matter how OP Kalis was, the time axis was Secretia's property. You don't hand a reality-bending nuke to your worst enemy. When Secretia hit them with a hard no, the Kali's empire went scorched earth immediately. Flashback to the war, Chase's brother screaming at Kalian, begging him not to go, terrified he'd be another casualty. He couldn't handle losing him too, but Kalian didn't listen. Chase watched his brother get wiped out in 4K. He screamed in pure horror. No. If only they could control Z everything to the days before that cursed artifact showed up. The thought hit Kalian like a truck, and he realized it wasn't just a fantasy. He barely processed the logic before he bolted upright in bed. A servant asked where he was going. Kalian stared at his hands, connecting the dots. Did Chase trigger the axis? Did he actually rewind time? If so, this is the final shot to stop Secretia from getting deleted from history. The servant bowed, sensing the mood shift. Breakfast was mandatory, but the clock was ticking. The main character dropped a quick my bad for the delay. He geared up instantly. Even if he's stuck role-playing as a Prince of Kalis, he is absolutely milking this second chance. The palace doors swung open showtime. The announcer called out, "The third prince, Kalian, has arrived." The servant was sweating bullets, apologizing for not waking him sooner. He didn't know Prince Randall would be there. Early. That's the first prince, Randall. All three princes are half-brothers. The first prince is tied by blood to the holy nation of Tencel. By royal decree, the brothers have to break bread every morning. But checking the memories lingering in his head, the vibes are definitely off. He bowed, asking forgiveness for his tardiness. Randall didn't even look up, just kept sipping his hot drink. Kalian might as well have been a ghost at that table. In his book, this was total disrespect. He believes he's got only one real brother, and this guy ain't it. Suddenly, a servant yelled, "Your Highness!" Enter the second prince, Franz. Dude comes sprinting in wearing slippers, crashing the breakfast club, right in front of everyone. Our protagonist was shook. Like, what is this behavior? Is this really a prince? Why is he allowed to flop onto the table like that? Is this the future Mad King? He sat in silence, while a servant poured his tea. The protagonist thought the guy's whole aesthetic screamed mental instability. He glanced at Randall. According to Kalian's memory bank, even the first prince doesn't dare provoke the second. That's because Franz's mom is the current queen, and her influence is so massive that nobody in the palace wants that smoke. The protagonist sipped his tea, trying to look chill, while internally panicking about how to survive this snake pit. Suddenly, the second prince zeroed in on him and called him ignorant. The protagonist was stunned by the shade. Then Franz turned and told him he was as trash as his mother. That hit a nerve. Kalian saw red, grinding his teeth. His hand shook as he forced the teacup back onto the saucer, telling himself to endure it. He couldn't blow the cover Chase had given him. But right now, the rage was choking him. Franz Kailis, the monster who nuked his country, was sitting right there, and it took everything not to launch across the table and end him. Franz caught that intense stare and froze. Snap! He hurled his teacup at the floor, shattering the silence. He demanded, "You got a problem with your eyes?" Randall finally stepped in. "Enough." He shot a look at Kalian. Franz saw his brother's furious glare, grabbed his own head in frustration, and kicked his chair over. "I'm done. Just looking at that red-eyed brat ruins my appetite." With that mic drop, he stormed out of the room. Randall stood up, smooth as ever. "Watch yourself, Kalian. His Majesty's birthday is coming up." Translation: "Don't start drama." He grinned, unable to respond. Was Randall seriously blaming him, and not the lunatic who just trashed the room? The servant rushed over, panic in his eyes. "Are you okay? No cuts?" The poor guy looked like he hadn't slept in a week. He knelt to wipe a splash off Kalian's shoe. Even though the whole castle treated him like air, realizing someone nearby actually gave a damn felt good. Kalian grabbed his shoulder and thanked him for having his back. Usually, this is the part where His Highness breaks down sobbing. But that smile? That's something new. The ancient dragon, Sisfanian, the OG queen of Kiris. Legend says in human form, she rocked obsidian hair and eyes red as blood, burning with sacred fire. Out of all the princes, Kalian is the only one who inherited those exact traits, yet his power level? Bottom of the barrel. The third prince spent his whole life hiding those eyes, terrified of triggering his brother. And the source of all that trauma? Prince plants. Peering into someone else's memories feels a bit intrusive. But seriously, hiding his face? Living a miserable life just because he was scared of his big brother? Ian steps up, asking if something's wrong. "Any orders, my liege?" Kalian shuts it down, telling him to head back. Ian hesitates. "You seem different today." Maybe he got too hyped on that night novel he read last night? Kalian denies it immediately. The third prince. Son of a commoner, timid, weak, zero backbone. A total pushover with no strength. To defend himself. That was the reality. And all of this is going down. Right before the coming-of-age ceremony, the antagonist turns to Ian. How old are you now? Turning 15 in 4 months. He realizes the timeline. In the original history, he gets killed soon after a botched poisoning attempt on Queen Silica. Suicide by hanging, yeah right. No one bought that cover story. It was definitely an assassination. Flash forward, Ian bursts into the office, screaming for him to slow down. The clock is ticking. Only 2 months. Until D-Day. He doesn't even know the specs of this new body yet, but sitting around doing nothing? Not an option. Ian warns him he might trip. Callion points to the table. Pass me those scissors. Ian blinks, totally confused. Scissors, sir? He places them on a velvet pillow and hands them over like they're a holy relic. What are these for? Callion grins. I'm making a change. If fate is real, he's about to rewrite it. Snip. He starts hacking off his hair. Ian starts losing it. What are you doing? Prince Plants is going to lose his mind. Callion doesn't stop. I'm done following his orders. For the rest of my life. Chill out. I'll handle it. Moments later, Prince Plant stares at him like he's seeing a ghost. He's finally lost it. Ian stands there, shivering, absolutely useless in this situation. This is his idea of handling it. Plants slouches at the table, glaring. Hey, Red Eyes. Callion snaps back. The name is actually Callion. Just a friendly reminder. Plants smirks. Right. Then the mood drops. Plants screams that he'll never use that name and grabs a steak knife off the table. The servants freeze. Ian freezes. The blade goes spinning straight for Callion's face, but Callion catches it mid-air. Barehanded. The blade slices his palm, blood dripping instantly. He grips it tighter, refusing to let go, while Ian starts screaming. For a medic, Plants actually chuckles. Whoops, hand slipped. Little brother got a boo-boo. Now what? He keeps taunting him, but Callion just squeezes the blade harder. Blood running down his arm, stands up, and slams the knife onto the table right next to Plants. Don't worry about me. No matter what you throw at me, I'll survive. Plants looks genuinely shook for the first time. Callion leaves the knife and walks out like a boss. Later, Ian is frantically treating the wound. With every medical supply he has, begging to call a healer. Callion shakes his head. No need. It's just a scratch. Ian is baffled. Callion looks at him. Why didn't you dodge? You saw it coming, right? You stood there like a statue. You could have easily moved. Ian stays silent, then whispers the truth. I didn't know how Prince Plants would react. I was scared he'd turn that rage on me if you dodged. Callion stands up. Great. Thanks to you, the sight of blood is making me nauseous. He heads to the washroom. I need to think. Don't let anyone in. Ian yells for him to wait, trying to help. Callion shuts him down. I want to be alone. And don't even think about calling a healer. Ian is desperate to call one anyway, thinking it's best. But here's the twist. During the attack, Callion tried to summon his aura to block the knife, but a sharp pain spiked through his heart. He needed to provoke that situation to test this body's limits and figure out the glitch. Suddenly, he clutches his chest again. What is this? He senses it. 3 magical seals locking his heart. Wait, is Callion secretly a wizard? Fast forward 3 days. Ian is screaming in terror because the wound still hasn't closed. What do we do? Callion just looks at the cut and smiles. Perfect. Ian stood there, absolutely floored, as the royal tailor rolled up out of nowhere and announced he was ready to rock. First things first. Introductions. Meet Slake, the royal tailor. Callion just stared at him, totally confused, asking, what's the deal? Slake bowed low, stuttering a clumsy apology. He'd just caught a glimpse of Lady Freya in the prince's face and froze. Ian wasn't having it, and barked the guy's name in a rage. Slake started begging for forgiveness, but Callion just let out a heavy sigh. He was so over this kind of dramatic reaction. See, Callion had deep-seated trauma about looking exactly like the mother he never met. He hated seeing his own reflection so much that he actually ripped every single mirror out of his room, but he just waved it off, saying, "It's chill. I know I look like her." He told the guy to just get to work. Slake said he needed measurements first, but the second he checked Callion's wrist, he frowned. "Your Highness, you gotta eat something." Slake felt bad saying it, but guys his age were usually way bulkier. Callion insisted he was eating fine, but a quick glance at his own reflection told a different story. The guy was wasting away, and it was a serious red flag. See, the Kairos royals aren't normal. They descend from dragons, specifically the 8 legendary heroes who sealed away an ancient evil, carrying the bloodline of Sisfanian and Hazar. The Kairos dynasty is supposed to have insane healing factors and magical talent, all thanks to Sisfanian's blessing. Basically, Callion's wound should have vanished ages ago. Instead, trying to channel mana felt like getting stabbed. He knew he was in deep trouble. No aura, no magic, he was a sitting duck. If this kept up, he was straight up dead meat. Slake turned to Ian, breaking the tension, and mentioned he had some fabric samples ready. Did the prince want a peek? Callion turned around, his mind racing. He didn't need fabric. He needed someone who actually understood how mana worked. Slake kept rambling about how these outfits would be a total hit for His Majesty's birthday bash. That's when it clicked, the birthday was coming up fast, and he was definitely going to be there. The legendary wizard, Alan Manassel. Kalian had to meet this guy. Alan was one of only 3 wizards on the entire continent to hit the 7th circle of power. The man was an absolute icon for a whole generation. There was this famous story about how Alan got invited to the King of Kyros's party, but then got blocked at the door for no reason. That shade was so massive it went viral all the way to neighboring countries. Even Secretia heard about it. But 10 years later, that humiliated wizard proved everyone wrong by becoming the only archmage of the 8th circle. Nobody on the continent knew Alan's lore better than Kalian, and he was banking on this wizard to fix his broken body. He could only guess the real reason Alan was snubbed. But let's be real, Kira's society treats mages like trash. So, getting Alan to listen? Not a sure thing. The palace was basically crawling with knights controlled by the Brisson family, the same toxic crew Prince Plant's mother belongs to. To survive the Brissons, Kalian needed a wizard in his corner. If he could win Alan over, he might even stop the war that Plants was destined to unleash. But right now, he had to focus. The maid suddenly chimed in, looking way too excited, asking if the ribbons were too small. She was obsessed with the giant ones. Slake even suggested adding more lace. Kalian snapped out of his thoughts and shut that down immediately. No ribbons, no frills, period. Did they seriously think he was going to wear lace with bells attached? What was he? A court jester? He wasn't about to look like a clown. Later, sipping some tea, Kalian realized he was actually getting used to this crazy new life, little by little. His physical wounds were fading, and Prince Plants was totally ignoring him. Finally, some peace and quiet. That is, until Ian dropped the bomb. Writing lessons in the morning, followed by dinner with the Queen and Viscount Brisson, Kalian choked on his tea. You have got to be kidding me. Ian wasn't joking. They were coming to discuss the king's birthday banquet. Kalian sighed. He knew he'd have to face the Brisson snakes eventually. Just then, Ian checked in on him, asking if he was seriously going to train today. Kalian brushed him off. Relax, just running a couple laps around the lake. Don't worry so much. What could happen? With a cocky smile, he headed out into the garden. Spoiler, everything could happen. He started sprinting, but seconds later, his chest tightened. He stopped, gasping, feeling like he was literally about to die. He clung to a tree to keep from face-planting. Suddenly, a panicked voice called out, asking if he was okay. It was Merlin, his servant and the daughter of the fortress guard captain. She started rattling off his stats. 4.5 laps day 1, 4 yesterday, and barely 3 today. Kalian slumped against the tree, staring at her. She was right. His problem was real. Training wasn't making him stronger. It was draining the little life he had left. Merlin offered to call a healer, looking terrified. No, Kalian panicked internally. A healer would spot his messed up magic circles instantly. Not even Ian knew he was a wizard, and he had to keep it that way. One wrong move right now, and it's game over for him. He just had to pray his body didn't give out before the credits rolled. The healer, totally useless guy, was running on empty. Merlin tried to clap back, but our main character cut him off, insisting he was perfectly fine. Just a few more training montages and he'd be back in peak form. But for now, his whole body was vibrating like a tuning fork from exhaustion. Suddenly, a roar cuts through the air. The commander was barking orders, telling one knight to lock his eyes on the target, while screaming at the other to track the blade and stay laser-focused. The boys spun around to check the commotion. Turns out, it was a full-blown skirmish. Knights were going at it, sparring aggressively. Their captain was in full drill sergeant mode, yelling at them to watch their spacing. In a real deathmatch, that mistake would have seen them gutted like fish. Hesitation kills. Our protagonist analyzed their flow, old instincts kicking in. Not bad. Merlin leaned in, whispering that this was Pavel's turf, the training grounds for his elite squad. The MC grinned, thinking it looked like fun, but Merlin started freaking out, yelling that he never cared about swordplay before. The MC shrugged. New life, new hobbies. Merlin pressed him. You know who Knight Pavel is, right? Obviously, he shot back. They're the Royal Guard, or rather, the Brisson family's personal goon squad, swarming the palace to keep the king on a short leash. Right on cue, Pavel, the commander himself, marched over with a scowl. What's the deal? You two have no business loitering here. He basically told them to beat it. His boys didn't like an audience while they were grinding. Merlin wasn't having it. He puffed up, demanding some respect since the third prince was literally standing right there. Pavel looked dumbfounded. Wait, this is the prince? He honestly thought a sewer rat had sneaked onto the field. He shot the prince a dirty look, but Kalian didn't flinch. Instead, he flashed a creepy, unbothered smile. Is this guy for real? That smirk sent Merlin over the edge. He started screaming, Are you blind? Bow down to the third prince. Pavel just shrugged. I said what I said. Inside, he was confused. Why was he getting so worked up over a couple of nobodies? Let's see. Even a prince. But the words died in his throat. He froze. Kalian's vibe shifted instantly, his eyes burning with a crimson glow. The knight felt a chill he'd never felt before. Flashbacks hit him. Memories of bullying this kid, yelling at him. Back then, Kalian would just cower and leave a total pushover. So, where was this overwhelming killing intent coming from? Kalian offered a mocking bow. Commander, let me ask you, what is your actual job here? Pavel was shaking, sweat pouring down his face like rain. His squad crept up behind him, whispering, Hey, isn't that the third prince? What's his damage? Why is he interrupting? He's just the useless prince even the rookies look down on. Trying to regain control, Pavel blurted out that they were mid-training and didn't have time to babysit. Go play somewhere else. Merlin was stunned by the disrespect, but Kalian stepped forward. Commander, I didn't stutter. What is your purpose? The question hung in the air, heavy and threatening. Everyone froze, the temperature in the room dropping 10 degrees. Pavel stammered that his job was to beef up the royal guard to protect the nation and the crown. Kalian casually snapped a branch off a nearby tree. Strength for protection. Huh. Then explain why you do your job like trash. Snap. He broke the branch in two, drilling a hole through Pavel with his stare. Pavel frowned. Excuse me? Kalian stepped in. You claim you want to make the guard stronger, but here's the reality check. First off, your training is garbage. And with that, he swung the stick like a blade, lunging straight for the commander's throat. Pavel's survival instinct screamed, block or die. He drew his steel sword just in time to parry, but the impact was insane. The knight was shook, his brain failing to compute how a wooden stick felt like a sledgehammer. Kalian held the clash with terrifying ease, then pushed, sending the knight's real sword bouncing away. He adjusted his grip on the twig and sighed. I've never even held a sword before, yet I read you like a book. How embarrassing. Pavel sensed a monster's aura radiating from him. Kalian continued. Secondly, a man sworn to defend the royal family, talks smack to a prince and then pulls a blade on him? Pretty sure that's treason, my guy. The commander's soul left his body. Is this really the same weakling, prince? Terror took over. He screamed for mercy. Forgive me, your highness. I wasn't thinking. He dove face first into the dirt, begging, claiming he'd never dream of betrayal. The other knights stood there, jaws on the floor, watching their boss grovel. Pavel's mind was racing. How did this insignificant prince suddenly become a boss-level threat? Dared to disrespect him? Oh, he was never going to let that slide. That humiliation was written in permanent ink. A little later, Ian was spiraling. He claimed the protagonist said he was just going for a walk by the lake, so where on earth did he find a whole horse? Suddenly, Kalian strolls back, Merlin grinning beside him, leading a massive steed named Raven like it was no big deal. Ian lost it, screaming, I didn't ask about the weather. Where have you been? And where did you steal a horse? Once the chaos settled, Kalian ignored the panic and focused on the beast, asking for the backstory. The knights nervously explained that Prince Plants tried to break the stallion but failed miserably. This horse was an absolute demon. Kalian just smirked and claimed the beast for himself. Ian started screeching again. How can you just swipe something belonging to Prince Plants like it's free candy? Kalian shrugged. It's a stray. Finders keepers. Whoever tames it, owns it. He shot Merlin a look, signaling him to keep his mouth shut about the details. Ian was shaking. But what happens when he finds out? We're dead. Kalian waved him off, insisting it was handled, when bam. His heart clenched violently. A ragged gasp of pain tore from his throat. Ian and Merlin screamed his name, terrified, while Kalian realized the hard truth. His current body was way too weak for that level of stress. Ian panicked. Did you overdo the training? Kalian grimaced. No, honestly. I haven't had that much fun fighting someone in ages. He actually felt refreshed. Ian looked at him like he was crazy. What? Who are you talking about? Kalian cut him off, checking the time. If we keep chatting, I'm going to be late for the royal dinner. Ian snapped back to reality, urging them to hustle, but he looked at the horse like it was an alien. He had zero clue how to handle it. Does this thing bite? The protagonist just shrugged, acting totally clueless. Meanwhile, whispers started spreading through the kingdom. Is that really what he said? Spicy. Rumor had it even a worm turns if you step on it hard enough. It all added up. The man crushed a flower in his grip, petals raining down like blood. Even if a nobody like Kalian started kicking and screaming, it wouldn't change his trash nature. It was too boring to just squash him now. Better to let the game play out. They'd keep eyes on him for now. Cut to Kalian, looking ahead with a dark grin. He simply couldn't vibe with this atmosphere. Even living it daily, the hatred and isolation from everyone around him was suffocating. But then, he glanced at Plants. Why was the loudmouth so quiet today? Were the Queen and Viscount Brayson keeping him on a tight leash? The kid had zero poker face, total amateur. Just then, a familiar, expensive perfume hit Callion's nose, and he smiled. The real boss had arrived, Celeste Brayson, the second and current queen of Kiris. After the first queen passed, Celeste stepped in, leveraged her family's massive influence, and snatched control of the Royal Knight Corps. With the nobility backing the Brayson clan, her power was snowballing every single day. Meanwhile, the third Prince Callion, with zero clout, was basically a punchline, even to low-ranking commanders. Just then, the Viscount suggested they handle Commander Fable the same way. Celeste nodded. Fine, cut him a check and be done with it. He nodded, and Celeste icily added, and stop wasting my time with these petty problems. She took her seat at the head of the table, looking bored. Why did she even have to deal with this nonsense? Callion studied the queen, calculating. Suddenly, she locked eyes with him. My, you've grown quite a bit recently. He flashed a sharp smile. He knew she'd react. Oh, it's nothing much yet, he replied smoothly. Trust me, I plan on doing a lot more growing. He grabbed a glass of wine, staring straight into the queen's soul with zero fear. The whole room froze, noticing the tension. Suddenly, a servant yelped. Grown or not, the guy barely recognized him. Good to see your face, I guess. You really needed a haircut ages ago. Enter Viscount Raynon Brayson, the second son of the Marquess. Since he was still in his growth phase, he was bound to get even bigger. But before he could finish his rambling, the queen slammed a heavy object onto the table. The room shook. Raynon spun around, terrified. What? What's wrong? I'm just starving. Someone get me food, stat. Watching this, Callion thought, wow, the head of the Brayson Merchant Guild really is as slow as they say. Totally clueless. It was almost charming. The queen ignored the idiot and stared at Callion in silence. Then, she shifted her gaze. She turned to Plants. Why didn't you tell me? Plants blinked, confused. Tell you what, that the horse refused to obey you. Plants froze, realization dawning on him. After a tense pause, he let out a nervous chuckle and stayed quiet. Celeste leaned in, eyes narrowing. I'd love to hear the story directly from you. Plants stammered that she already knew. Celeste cut him off, but I didn't hear it from your mouth. Things spiraled into total chaos, pushing Franz to the breaking point as he snapped, demanding they admit that he was a lost cause from day one. He slammed his fork onto the table, shot up from his chair, and announced he was done with this. The queen just froze, absolutely floored by the scene playing out in front of her. Fast forward 3 weeks to the king's birthday bash. The whole place was buzzing with energy as people scrambled to craft the ultimate party, shouting orders for flowers to deck out the halls for His Majesty's big day. Perfection was the only option here. An envoy of elves was even rolling through the city to pay their respects. A horse hauled a mountain of chests, sparking whispers about what insane treasures were hidden inside. This banquet was shaping up to be legendary. The princes had to be buried in prep work, right? The crowd was dying to catch a glimpse of them. The hype was real. Meanwhile, Callion was stuck in his room with Slake, who was staring at the measuring tape, totally confused by the numbers. Wasn't the prince supposed to be bulking up? Suddenly, dark red blood started gushing from Callion's nose. It dripped everywhere, coating his hand and splattering the floor. Ian let out a terrified shriek. Your Highness, someone grab a handkerchief, stat. Callion waved it off, claiming it wasn't a big deal, just a little lack of sleep lately. He glanced down. The flow had already stopped, but Ian wasn't buying the I'm fine act. Slake apologized for overstepping but cut straight to the point. The problem was deeper. The prince was steadily wasting away. 3 weeks ago, he wasn't the skeletal. Callion clocked the issue and forced a smile. Is it really that obvious? He tried to blame it on hardcore training. He'd been grinding, sure, but his stamina was actually tanking. The sharp pain whenever he tried to channel mana confirmed it. His heart was failing him. Slake warned him not to play games with his health. Had he seen a healer? Callion brushed it off again. Why call a doctor for a simple nosebleed? But the room was already buzzing with talk of medical intervention. Why did he have to bleed out in front of an audience? Slake insisted this wasn't just blood. However, Callion doubled down that he was totally fine. He couldn't shake them off. Suddenly, Ian stepped up, dropping a bomb. I know why. He was picking at his nose yesterday. Callion froze, just as stunned as Slake. Ian kept going, acting like it was painful to expose such a personal secret. Callion's eyes went wide. Excuse me? What is happening? The servants were cracking up at the thought of Prince Callion having such a nasty habit. Ian pressed on, reminding everyone, Prince Callion eats and trains like a beast, so the nosebleed is just from aggressive picking. No need to panic. Slake hesitated but sighed. If you say so. He figured Ian knew the prince's quirks better than anyone. Ian shot Callion a sly wink, while Callion stood there paralyzed, mentally cursing his servant to oblivion. He recalled Ian asking if he was actually okay earlier, noticing he looked like a wreck. The weaker his body got, the closer he felt to crashing. So, to hide the fact that his mana issues were killing him, Ian decided to trash his reputation? Well, at least the crisis was averted. Slake announced that in that case, he'd take the clothes in to fit Callion's shrinking frame. The only issue was the ticking clock. Ian smoothed it over, saying nothing was wrong and the prince had free time, so they weren't in a rush before the event. Slake looked relieved. Thank goodness. In that case, I'll rush the alterations for this afternoon. Ian leaned in and whispered to Callion, "It is today, right?" Callion knew he was running out of time before his heart condition became palace gossip. He had to link up with Alan today, no matter the cost. A little later, Callion walked up to the dining hall with his servant, but was stopped by a bowing attendant. Change of plans. The group breakfast was axed. Everyone was getting a one-on-one meeting instead. Callion wondered why the schedule shift. Private audiences? Wouldn't a group gathering be more efficient? He hadn't prepped for a solo interrogation, and the nerves were starting to kick in. The doors swung open, and he was informed that His Majesty was ready for him. Inside King Room's quarters, Callion bowed low. "Greetings, Your Majesty." The king didn't even flinch. He just sat there, totally ignoring Callion's existence. He kept flipping through papers, silent as a grave. Callion thought, I might not be an etiquette expert, but this is straight up rude. Finally, the king gestured for him to sit. Callion wished him a happy birthday. Rume gave a curt thanks and asked how he was, noting he looked quite well. Callion froze, remembering the terrified looks from earlier. Everyone had already written him off as a lost cause. Even the servants, people who never even spoke to him, could see the life draining out of him, fast. Suddenly, the king's strategy clicked. He insisted on seeing them one-on-one, no matter how packed his calendar was. Dealing with all his sons together? That would require actual focus. Individual meetings were just the lazy way out. To him, spending even a second with the sons here to celebrate his birthday felt like a total waste of breath. Every layer he peeled back on this family just revealed more rot. A dad who couldn't care less about his own kids? Gross. Prince 1 is a total stone wall, and Prince 2 acts like he was raised in a barn. Right on cue, Queen Silic makes her grand entrance. Randall snaps that she's late. Franz just smirks, shrugging it off like, stuff happens. This woman holds enough power to look down on the king himself. But there's a target on his back. The party is kicking off. But the real question is, who ordered the hit on his soul? Suddenly, the crowd erupts. Whispers turn to shouts. Prince Callion has touched down in the square. He's actually showing his face. And the glow-up is insane. Next to him, Prince Franz just looks like a wasted mess. The crowd tried to brush it off as just another royal appearance. But the vibe? It shifted. Hard. You could feel the tension in the air. This wasn't the old Callion. Then, the screaming started again. Callion steps into the banquet hall, and jaws drop. The gossip wasn't just talk, it was legit. Pitch black hair, blood-red eyes channeling Cispian vibes, and those bangs hiding his face? Gone. He's even rocking that crimson brooch. It's a massive statement. I'm done hiding in the shadows. He strides in, flashing a killer smile. Ian leans in, whispering, "Why is everyone staring at your fit like that?" Ian figured Callion just looked too good. Cispian would be proud. But Callion murmurs back, "They aren't admiring the outfit, Ian. They're shocked the third prince has the guts to wear jewelry like this in public." Does Ian even get it? Blocking Sealike took serious effort. He should be grateful they compromised on this one piece. If he'd worn everything they tried to dump on him, the backlash would have been a nightmare. Ian just beams, "Well, I think it looks great." Ignorance is bliss for these two. They picked that brooch without a second thought. Callion changes the subject. "Ian, didn't you say your folks live in Kairos too?" "Yeah." Ian lights up, surprised he remembered. "My little sister. And my dad went back to our hometown. But the rest are here in the capital." Callion asks, "When are they hitting up the palace?" "Only if they get an invite," Ian admits. Then he switches gears. "So, when do you want Raven in the garden?" Callion notices the dodge. "Guess everyone has skeletons they don't want to drag out of the closet." "Fair enough. Let's wait for the perfect timing," Callion says. "There's someone I need to eyeball first." Ian's eyes go wide. "Who?" Callion points up. "You know why this place is named Siegfried's Hall?" Ian nods. "Duh. Named after the first patriarch, one of the 8 heroes from the war, Duke Hans Siegfried, the only Duke-level family in all of Kairos. They have insane clout, yet they've stayed loyal to the crown for over 500 years, guarding Cispian land like watchdogs. Back when he was Byrne, that loyalty really stuck with him." Ian turns to him. "So the person you want to meet isn't random." Before Ian can finish, Callion cuts in. "Yeah, he wanted to see you." Boom. A booming laugh tears through the hall. A man bellows, "Siegfried's Midsummer Night, a timeless classic." Ian whispers, "Speak of the devil. It's him, Duke Sleeman Hans Siegfried." He grins, challenging the room. "Am I right?" Callion clocks it immediately. That legendary loyalty. This guy is exactly his type of ally. Time to see if the Duke's instincts are sharp. Sleeman's eyes flash with pure terror. He whips his head toward Callian, sensing the mana leaking out. Bingo. He spotted him in a heartbeat. Callian lets a little more magic trickle out. Ian murmurs. Looks like the Duke is interested in you. Well, obviously. The guy is one of the 5 sword masters of the continent. He'd have to be blind not to notice. It's a good sign, but it's too soon to play that card. Callian decides to play dumb for now. Sleeman keeps staring, totally shook. Finally, the king raises his goblet. Thanks for the birthday wishes. Enjoy the night. To our great nation, Kyrus. Later, Callian and Ian are shimmying down a rope into the garden. Scene change. Callian hops onto his new steed, grinning. Smart and gentle, just like a raven should be, Ian yells out. Don't let him trick you when I'm not looking. But, as you can see, the horse is already learning fast. Arguing with the first grunt at the checkpoint was a waste of breath. They just needed access to the main gate. Callian gave a curt nod. Done. While they waited, the atmosphere shifted. Someone was causing a commotion at the perimeter. Alan dropped the news on the guards. He'd trekked a hell of a long way for this bash. The guard wasn't having it. Beat it, old man. But Callian? His face lit up. The target was right here. The guard doubled down, demanding paperwork. Big mistake. The mage dropped his name like a bomb. Alan Manassel. Didn't matter. These gatekeepers were thicker than the castle walls. Even the captain stepped in, insisting on a physical invite. Alan let out a dry, dangerous chuckle. Annoying. So this is Kyrus? Judging guests by their drip? Callian mused on the superficiality. But something felt off. Alan wasn't just annoyed. He was nitpicking, like he was hunting for a reason to ghost Kyrus entirely. The mage yanked his reins, spinning his horse around. Panic spiked in Callian's chest. The mage was bolting. Ian caught the vibe but yelled, "You can't!" King's orders. Total lockdown during the festival. Callian watched the mage's silhouette fading into the distance. If he stalled, he'd lose him. To hell with the king's command. He spurred his horse, shouting back at Ian, "Hold them off, whatever it takes." He had to catch that mage. The guards formed a human wall. Halt! Leaving the palace wasn't just frowned upon. It was illegal. Callian ignored the noise. He urged his mount into a massive leap, soaring right over their heads and exiting the palace grounds. Soldiers scrambled to give chase. Ian froze, heart pounding. What now? Then Callian's order echoed in his head. He bit his lip hard enough to taste iron. Focus. He's the servant of Prince Callian. Protection is the gig. Duty calls, no matter the price. Ian stepped directly into the guard's path and barked an order to stand down. Duke Siegfried authorizes the prince's departure. A guard sneered. Who are you to drop the duke's name so casually? Ian pulled the tie from his hair, letting it cascade down his back. I am Siroyan Siegfried, the duke's eldest son. Later, when the duke heard the story, he howled with laughter. Ian stood there, face burning with shame. It's not that funny, father, Ian mumbled. But Sleeman wiped a tear from his eye, wheezing. Ian started to apologize, but Slamon shook his head. He couldn't believe his boy pulled a stunt like that. He ruffled Ian's hair. That's my son, the kid who ran away from home. Turns out, he made the right call. But father, Ian pressed, this is bad. This is definitely going to mess with the king. It complicates things with his majesty, Slimon smirked. He won't ask. Ian blinked. What? I said, Rumain won't ask. The king overthinks everything. If a prince owes a debt to House Siegfried, it forces the king to question the narrative. Is it a coup? Is the family making a power play? And if he doesn't punish us? It looks like he endorses an alliance between Callian and us. That confirms a bond the Breezen family would see as a direct threat. It's a political minefield. So, he'll bury it. Pretend it never happened. It's the only move he has. Back on the road, Callian finally cornered Alan. The mage halted. Guess you're not here to scold me for lacking an invite. Alan lowered his hood, revealing his face. Why is the third prince chasing an old man down? Callian studied him. He'd heard the rumors about high-level magic. Hit the 7th circle, and time rewinds. Rumors were true. The guy looked barely legal. It's late, Callian said. You really leaving? Alan shrugged, tried to open the door. Threshold was too high for my taste. Callian felt a twitch of annoyance. Really? We're doing riddles now? Fine. 2 can play. Callian smirked. I'm asking because you're banging on an open door. Why act locked out when you're already in? Or rather, where'd you stash the invite we sent? Alan laughed. Was too busy fighting the wind. Forgot to sweep the dust off the porch. Didn't think your guards would be stupid enough to block me. Alan wasn't sorry. He was critiquing. Was it honesty or just pure arrogance? Callian grinned. Interesting guy. Alan sized the prince up. Looked like a standard 14-year-old kid, until Alan saw the hands. That grip on the reins. That wasn't a child's hand. Alan closed the distance instantly. Forgive me. He snatched Callian's wrist. Magic surged. A sharp, piercing pain stabbed Callian's heart, and he doubled over. Alan's mana crashed into his body like a tidal wave, blinding light exploding from the point of contact. The horse spooked, rearing up and severing the connection. Through the backlash, Alan realized the terrifying truth. His internal mana gates were slammed shut. The wind whipped around them, but it couldn't hide the tension. Kalian composed himself, knowing the mage had already seen right through him. Unable to channel magic? That wasn't the issue. Alan realized the kid was clueless about the real danger lurking inside him. The root cause was far more sinister. Glancing at his hand, Alan scowled. Kyrus really treated their mages like trash. Even if they carried dragon blood in their veins, he'd come here to humble this arrogant family personally, to punish them for letting him slip through their fingers. But stumbling upon this young prince? Call it destiny. He paused, weighing his words, trying to figure out why he was so intrigued by this boy. He'd spot a lie in a heartbeat. Dismounting, the mage introduced himself, ready to test the waters. I need to assess the situation. The prince's life was hanging by a thread, and Alan knew exactly why. The third prince, public enemy number 1. Surrounded by vipers, Alan flicked a finger casually. A soundproof dome snapped into existence over them. Kalian's eyes went wide with shock. Silent casting? No incantations? Is this guy seriously a 7th circle mage? Alan cut through the silence. Do you want a band-aid for the symptoms? Or do you want to rip out the root of the problem? Kalian smirked. For now, I just want to stop the bleeding. Alan raised an eyebrow at the just, until Kalian dropped the bomb. But eventually, I'm tearing out the source, even if I have to seize the throne to do it. The mage grinned. The throne isn't the goal. It's just a weapon in this kid's arsenal. Big talk for a boy with 1 foot in the grave. He reminds me so much of Burn, and he needs me. This just got interesting. All right, kid, let's see what you've got. Invite me properly this time. Triumph flashed across Kalian's face. He dropped to one knee. Kalian Rain Kyrus greets his master, and Alan Manassel accepts. The pact was sealed. He would save this boy, no matter the cost. Meanwhile, Jan was pacing nervously. Father, are you positive nobody at the palace knows who I really am? Relax, his father scoffed. I handled it. Jan tapped his chin, his mind racing with paranoia. If they figure me out, they'll tear me away from his highness. The duke smirked. Sharp kid. My own son, yet your loyalty lies elsewhere. The words hit Jan like a gut punch. Desperate to change the subject, Jan asked, How's Leah? She's doing a hell of a job, his father replied. Leading the family you abandoned. He stood up, stretching his massive frame. Anyway, when you're done playing butler, home is waiting. Though I get the feeling I'll be waiting a long time. A long time? Jan frowned. I'll see you in 3 months. Slayman raised a brow. So you're actually quitting the servant act? Jan fiddled with his fingers. I turn 15 soon. His father looked at him like he spoke an alien language. Listen to me, boy. Do you forget who we are? We are the Siegfried Lions. We don't chase thrones. We are the kings of beasts. Even predators fear us. Jan blinked. Why the history lesson, Dad? Slayman grabbed him in a headlock. Why? You underestimate our name. It carries weight, boy. So do whatever the hell you want. Jan's lip quivered, tears welling up as the crushing hug tightened. You little brat, making your old man worry. He squeezed until Jan's ribs creaked. Dad, air, dying. When Slayman finally released him, Jan gasped, straightening his tunic. Goodbye, Duke Slayman. Slayman waved him off. Get out of here, kid. Jan bowed deeply. Watching him leave, Slayman chuckled. Stubborn as a mule. He really is a Siegfried. When did he get so big? And what is he plotting? Next morning, a carriage arrived at the palace, emblazoned with 7 red flowers and a silver wand. The nobles froze, jaws dropping. I heard his contract with Riverrun ended, a woman whispered. But why come to Kyrus? A man replied. Obvious choice. If he wasn't tight with King Riverrun, he would have bailed ages ago. It has to be the rumor. Whispers spread like wildfire. They were talking about Alan's son. But right at that second, the carriage door swings open. The mage steps out, scanning the area with a nervous little smirk. He's thinking about the power move his new apprentice pulled yesterday. The kid actually had the guts to tell him to show up at 9:30 sharp this morning. Told him to walk right through the front gates. He was waiting for the perfect moment to reveal himself to the high society vultures, and this was it. Total game changer. His sudden arrival has the nobles gossiping like crazy about the king's standoff with the Breeson faction. Finally, a royal butler scrambles out of the palace. He rushes up to the mage, completely thrown off by this unannounced visit. But King Roman? He was waiting. When they finally face off, and the king hears the reason for the visit, he's floored. Roman asks, skepticism written all over his face, You actually want to be reinstated in Kalis? Alan nods. Confirmed. The king goes silent, his mind racing. He knew that to take down the soulless religion, he needed heavy artillery, someone on Alan Manassel's level. But he never guessed the mage would volunteer to stay here first. What's his angle? Seeing the king's hesitation, The mage decides to cut the fluff. I'll be straight with you. Last night, I spotted a stray black cat with red eyes in the square. Smart little thing. Figured it was worth teaching it a few tricks. But here's the kicker. He needs a place to crash. Roman connects the dots instantly. He knows exactly who the cat is. And what, pray tell, are you planning to teach him? Alan smirks. Magic, obviously, and how to survive. But he needs the landlord, aka the king, to do some housekeeping and clear out the trash. Roman is caught off guard, raising an eyebrow. You think you can handle the heat? Alan doesn't flinch. I've claimed Prince Callian as my disciple, so the Breezen family can't touch me. Plus, you can't exactly practice high-tier magic solo all day. If a bored archmage decides to help his student with some extracurriculars, who's gonna stop him? Roman realizes this entire setup was Prince Callian's invitation. He clenches his fist, makes the call, and stands up. Fine, I'll make room. The palace is already a disaster zone. A little more chaos won't hurt. He walks over to his desk, pausing. But there's something bothering me. A rumor I heard. They say there's nothing special about the child. Alan's internal monologue screams, nothing special? The kid's health alone is a medical anomaly. It's harder to find something normal about him than something weird. The king continues, I was told he's paralyzed by fear. Hard to believe a kid scared of horses chased you down. If he had any potential, I would have known about it by now. Alan stares at him, disbelief washing over him. You're basing this on gossip? Alan shoots back. Do you even know how tall your own son is? Roman turns to face him. Silence. He can't answer. Alan realizes the king knows absolutely zero about the boy. Alan stands tall. Sometimes attention is poison, and indifference is the cure. But they both know that being too busy is just a lame excuse for bad parenting. The king bristles at the tone. I'm going to assume your rudeness is just overprotective teacher instincts. It's ridiculous he has to justify himself, but he claims he values his sons, especially Callian. He's my favorite. Roman tries to end the chat and leave, but Snap Alan flicks his fingers. An invisible barrier slams down, blocking the exit. We're done with the small talk. Roman fumes. You dare use magic in the royal palace? Alan ignores the outrage. The prince's lips are cracked dry. His breathing is ragged. Skin's turning blue. Fingernails are purple. And his clothes? Obviously hemmed in a rush. Since the ceremonial outfit was prepped a month ago, that means Callian has dropped a scary amount of weight. In just weeks. He can't leave his bed. Can't open his eyes. He's fading away. The truth hits Roman like a freight train. He's been neglecting a dying son. Alan twists the knife. Keep standing on the sidelines, and you're going to lose him for good. Meanwhile, a maid rushes up to Ian, panicked. It's almost noon, and the prince hasn't touched his tea. Ian flashes a reassuring smile. Hand it over. I'll make sure he drinks it. He takes the tray and slips into the silent chamber. Callian is wincing in his sleep. Ian watches him, worried. Yesterday took everything out of the kid. Suddenly a voice right behind his ear. Still out cold? Ian spins around, terrified, and lets out a strangled scream, barely catching the tea tray, before whispering, How the hell did you get in here? Alan just strolls toward the bed like he owns the place. Ian jumps in his path, blocking him. You're crossing a line. You can't just waltz into Churmill Palace without a pass. Ian glares. Did you just teleport in here? Teleportation. High-level warping, he bragged, checking his nails. Clearly, my magic game is top tier. Ian wasn't having any of it. Who cares? Get out. The prince is in critical condition. The mage cut him off mid-rant. Wait, I know you. You were in Riverrun a few years back, right? Thought I wouldn't recognize you, just because you hit a growth spurt? You're the baby elephant. He smirked, recalling the old man's description. Relax. Your kid isn't huge anymore. Nobody's gonna clock him. Joke was on him. He got made in 2 seconds flat. The commotion jolted Callian awake. How long was I out? Ian fidgeted, gesturing awkwardly at the intruder. Your Highness. We have company. Callian rubbed his temples, totally disoriented. He definitely didn't expect a visitor the second he woke up from his coma nap. They got straight to business. Alan tossed him a pouch. 1 pill, daily. Callian eyed it skeptically. Meds? Yep. His mentor nodded. You've got 2 major issues. 1, your mana control is absolute trash right now. 2, your body is breaking down, fast. Callian shut his eyes, exhausted. He hadn't even spoken a word yet, but Alan was reading him like an open book. The mage frowned, leaning in closer. You've got the blessing, don't you? Callian nodded. Yeah. It's supposed to give me insane healing factor and a knack for magic. But lately, it feels like the healing part just vanished. Heart trouble? Alan pressed. Doesn't that strike you as a weird mix? Healing plus magic usually equals invincible. Callian shrugged. I figured the blessing was just reinforcing my heart, since the heart drives both mana and life force. The mage grinned. Exactly. The blessing does buff the heart, and that power is still there. Your heart is fine. Your mana isn't blocked. Callian looked lost. Then what's killing me? Ever think that Sisfanian's blessing didn't vanish? It's just maxed out? Callian's eyes went wide. It clicked. Something was draining the blessing dry. It was so busy fighting something else, it couldn't heal a paper cut. Poison? He whispered. If you didn't have that blessing, the mage replied grimly, you'd be 6 feet under. Your body is fighting a lethal toxin 24/7. That stress hits your heart, burns out your healing, and makes your body reject any mana you try to channel. Callian twirled the pill, mind racing. The original Callian didn't just die, he was being slowly murdered long before this soul took over. This wasn't an accident, it was a hit. But why execute a kid who was already weak? A dark, heavy aura started to leak from him. Alan froze, staring in shock. That wasn't normal anger, that was pure bloodlust. Way too intense for a 14-year-old. Who is this kid? Callian snapped him back to reality. So, this is the antidote? Yeah, the mage nodded. Rush the brew, but it's potent. Callian stared at the pill, calculating the risks. What happens if I take the poison and the cure? At the same time, Alan's eyes bugged out. Are you insane? The antidote just buys time if you keep chugging poison. It's barely holding you together as it is. You're seriously gonna keep dosing yourself? You know how they're doing it, don't you? Callian nodded grimly. The tea. It has to be. I drink it every morning in plain sight. Easy to verify, I took the bait. And since it's my personal blend, it's the perfect delivery system. The real Callian probably sensed it, stopped drinking it, and that's why they strangled him. Plan B. But now that I'm here, the game has changed. If I stop drinking, they'll just find a new way to kill me. I need to buy time to find the mastermind. We keep this quiet. He laid it out for the teacher, but Alan wasn't buying it completely. Is that the only reason? Callian sighed. If I expose the tea, Ian and the staff take the fall for failing to protect me. The killer is comfortable. Routine protects them. I need to keep them comfortable. The magician looked away, muttering softly, Baby elephant's gonna be all right. He rubbed his face, resigned. Fine. I get it. I'm in. So, what's the play? Callian's mind flashed back to his father's war lessons. To bait out the enemy's ace, you have to discard your own. He always heard his dad's voice in moments like this. I need you to smuggle me out of the palace. Tomorrow night. Meanwhile, chaos erupted in Prince Plant's quarters. The servants were scrambling. The queen was inbound. Her heels clicked rapidly down the hall. They shook the prince awake, but there was zero time to get him decent. She shooed the staff away and ripped the curtains back. Look at you, already behind schedule, for your afternoon agenda, or did you forget? Her son groggily rubbed his face. She recoiled, disgusted. Ugh, you reek of booze. Even after getting banned from drinking at the opening ceremony, this guy clearly didn't learn a thing. Snatching a water glass off the nightstand, he demanded to know why she was there. Just spill the answer and get out. She bit her lip, clearly ticked off, and dropped the bomb. Callian had taken a mentor, and not just anyone, a mage of the 7th Circle. Alan Manassel? The nobles were already shaking in their boots. Plants just shrugged. So what? That triggered the queen. She got right in his face. She hissed a warning. Ensure all the effort she poured into him didn't go down the drain. Then she barked at him to get dressed. Immediately. With a sharp wave, she signaled the servants to hustle, warning her son that the spotlight would be totally on him today. So he better not embarrass her. She stormed out, leaving Plants absolutely fuming. He sprang from the bed and hurled the glass at the floor. Smash! Bad move, he ended up slicing his own hand. The servants rushed in, panicking. Ignoring the bleeding wound, he angrily shooed them away and screamed for everyone to get lost. The second Callian's face flashed in his mind. He ground his teeth so hard they practically cracked. Cut to a massive procession led by the king, rolling through the city streets. The whole town was out there, cheering their hearts out for his birthday. They were chanting for the glory of Kairos. Up on his dad's shoulders, a kid spotted the princes and excitedly pointed them out. The dad whispered, See the dark-haired one? That's the one we've been waiting for. Prince Callian waved, and the crowd went wild. Riding alongside him, Ian looked worried, asking how he was holding up physically. He was looking way sharper than yesterday, thankfully. Callian just smiled, saying a good night's sleep did the trick. Maybe the antidote kicked in? Either way, he was breathing easier, and that chest pain had finally faded. Ian grumbled about the packed schedule. Seriously? After this parade, we've got the horse show, then the ball? What if you get another nosebleed? It was too much. Callian just gave a nervous chuckle. He told Ian to stop stressing over him. He felt strong enough to handle every event today, and that was all that mattered. Scanning the smiling crowd while waving, 2 shady figures suddenly caught his eye. A guy and a girl lurking in an alley. One look at the guy, and it clicked his old buddy, Kiri. The guy who'd risked his life to protect him back then. Staring at his face, there was zero doubt. It was him. But what's he doing here in Kairos? Raven, sensing Callian's shock, immediately veered toward the alley. Ian grabbed the reins, asking why the horse was freaking out. He steered Raven back onto the main road. "Is someone over there?" Ian asked. Callian gazed back with regret, just as the two figures slipped away from the alley. He patted Raven's neck. "You felt it too, huh? But they couldn't stop now," he silently promised Kyrie. "Just wait, I will find you." Arriving at the arena, they were greeted by the man himself, Melfier Pollen, the tycoon behind the Pollen Empire. He welcomed the king, bragging about the performances they'd lined up, guaranteed to blow everyone away. Callian realized he was the one running the equestrian show, instead of the Brisson family. That saved him a ton of drama. But something else was gnawing at him. If history repeats itself, Randall gets injured here, and Baron Pollen ends up with a noose around his neck. Melfier ushered them to the VIP section. Callian looked up. 3 massive chandeliers hung directly above their heads. Callian instantly spotted the one destined to crash down. This whole setup felt sketchy. With the king attending, shouldn't security be tight? Shouldn't they have triple-checked this? Especially with the Valkenham Night Corps on guard duty? Just thinking about that unit brought their annoying commander to mind. Callian smirked. Maybe he'd throw the guy a lifeline today. As Melfier guided him to his seat, Callian leaned in and whispered that the chandelier overhead was giving him bad vibes. "Check it out." The Baron watched him walk away, confused, then looked up and frowned. Showtime. Riders circled the platform below, the crowd roaring with applause. Melfier was pumped, fists clenched. The big day was here, and he'd scored a seat right next to the king. He wanted to chat up the king, but his eyes drifted to Callian, who sat behind them looking totally unimpressed. The chandelier comment popped back into his head. Did they check the ceiling? It started eating at him. He decided to investigate, and sure enough, the rope holding that massive light was hanging by a thread. If the prince hadn't warned him, that thing would have crushed Prince Randall. It would have been a total bloodbath. He glanced back at Callian in awe. How did he know? He smiled, realizing Baron Pollen. He kept his distance from the king, a cold, calculated move. He wasn't stalling. He was playing 4D chess, looking 5 steps ahead, instead of grabbing the quick win. But the Brisson family flipping on Pollen with such aggression, that screamed setup. Then, he felt eyes on him. Plants was staring. After a tense, thoughtful pause, Plants dropped the bomb. Know your place. Pure revulsion clawed at his throat. He could physically taste the bitterness of his so-called filthy, pathetic blood, completely ignoring the roaring crowd below. The prince didn't whisper. Everyone froze. Randall, the king, the queen heads snapped toward him, eyes wide with absolute shock. Callian buried his face in his hand, shielding a smirk. Pathetic blood? He thought. Oh, brother, you have no idea what storm you just kicked up. Who knew plants would actually be this useful? Celeste must be fuming right now. Watching her spiral toward rock bottom is getting painful. The queen snapped her fan open, hiding her face but not her eyes. She glared daggers at her son, screaming idiot with just a look. She warned him 1,000 times, yet here we are. But when she saw his face, she froze. Plants wasn't cowering. He was smiling. He was enjoying her panic. She realized instantly he dropped that line on purpose. But why now? The nobles began whispering furiously. Disrespecting the bloodline in front of King Romain? That is political suicide. Plants is officially out. With Alan Manassel backing him, Prince Callian is suddenly the only viable candidate for crown prince. The hierarchy just shifted. The aristocrats can't sit on the fence anymore. It is time to pick a side. The show wrapped up awkwardly. Randall dodged the drama, and Romain seemed to gloss over Plant's outburst. But Callian felt a twitch of suspicion. Everything went his way, yet the queen remained unnervingly composed. Assuming the pollen frame-up was her playbook, Callian studied her face. Was she actually blindsided by today, or just acting? It triggered a memory, a chess match with his brother. During one game, he asked if the series accident was just a random attack on the royals. Was an outsider really pulling the strings? His brother laughed, saying anything is possible, but simple answers are boring. He threw down a bet, reminding him he was losing. Do you even remember how much cash you owe me? His brother grinned, tapping his temple. I calculated every penny. Then came the hint. That accident. Wasn't it too obvious? It was like the attackers wanted to be caught targeting the royal family. Think about it. If the owner of the second biggest trading house in Ceres gets wiped out, who wins the jackpot? Obviously Renan Brisson, the guy running the #1 trading house in town. Back in the present, while Ian prepped the horses, Callian threw out a question. What is House Pollen's cash cow? Ian didn't hesitate. Most likely the diamond mines. Bingo. Callian nodded. Wipe out Pollen, and House Brisson monopolizes the diamond market. Renan did his math. He wants to save Pollen, sure, but mostly to collect a massive debt for saving his life. Callian swung onto his horse, eyes sharp. Ian, clear my schedule. Cancel everything for tonight. Ian blinked, panicked. But my lord. The post-show ball. Every noble worth their salt will be there. Kalian dramatically clutched his head, feigning distress. Oh, the horror of today's words. I am simply too heartbroken to party. He rode off, leaving the drama behind. Later, King Romain returned to the palace, fresh from a secret meeting, sitting alone in the dark to process the chaos. Alan's warning echoed, "Stand aside, and you lose him forever." That, combined with Plant's outburst and the memory of Kalian's dying mother begging for her son's safety, weighed him down. Bang! The doors flew open. The flustered butler tried to warn him, but Queen Celeste was already storming in. She marched to the center of the room, sizing up the king like a predator. A maid quickly snatched 2 half-empty teacups from the table. "Fresh tea, your majesties." Celeste paused, eyes narrowing. 2 cups? Who was here before her? She hadn't heard a whisper about a guest. Romain just waved the maid off. "It is fine. She is leaving soon anyway." His dismissal stung. Keeping her cool, the queen sat opposite him. "So, what brought you here?" he asked. Barely containing her rage, she announced icily, "House Brezin will take full responsibility for today's mess." She bit her lip, a rare crack in her armor. Romain saw it. Was she really stooping this low, just to cover for Plant's screw-up? Her son's reputation meant everything, but her audacity remained untouched. "The show was memorable," she said, voice smooth. "Baron Pollen deserves a reward for such entertainment. Don't you agree?" Romain leaned back. "Sounds like you have already decided exactly how to pay him off." She snapped her fan open, answering him with a smile that screamed defeat. She was handing over House Brissen's exclusive rights to stock the royal stables. The king's hand shook with excitement. He grinned, wondering if she was really fumbling such a massive cash cow. Everything played out exactly like Alan's blueprint. They'd strategized just moments ago. He'd predicted the queen knew she had to sacrifice a pawn to fix the mess Prince Franz created, but she wasn't desperate enough to recall her personal night squad from the palace yet. So, she'd slide into his DMs with a trade she thought was a fair equivalent exchange. Once the deal was sealed, he'd let her believe he was willing to turn a blind eye for now. Romain wondered if this was the master's playbook or the student's hustle. He told the queen that he and Franz would make their grand entrance together that evening, which had her absolutely beaming. She claimed he'd be thrilled, exactly as the contract stipulated. Romain and Franz strutted into the ballroom side by side, and Baron Pollen officially secured that bag, the exclusive supply rights. Everyone in the room clocked the vibe immediately. This was Celeste's desperate maneuver to bail out her son. To think House Brisson took such a massive L. Now the court realized how the queen paid for the prince's wild behavior. Turns out Prince Kalian has enough leverage to force the queen's hand. Time to see if he's got true main character energy. Later, Kalian's room looked like a delivery center, overflowing with gifts. He scratched his head, staring at the pile, noting how fast these snakes were ready to switch teams without a shred of shame. Jan asked what to do with all this bribery, reflecting that while watching Franz and House Brisson lose clout was satisfying, he didn't want a squad full of traitors. Kalian told Jan to return to sender on everything, except the loot from the Mage Association, and Baron Pollen, and to keep a receipt of who sent what. Jan pointed to a small, unassuming box, and said this one had to be from the Baron. Kalian spun around, piqued, watching Jan pull a massive, heavy necklace from the box. But hold up, it wasn't for him. It was bling for his horse. Kalian looked flabbergasted as the insult landed, then realized this was a specifically calculated move. He looked at Jan. "What exactly did you tell him?" Jan admitted the Baron asked for intel, so he mentioned how much His Highness was obsessed with his horse. Kalian analyzed the jewelry. "Is this drip for the beast, not the master?" "It was a test. If he accepts this freebie, he's signing a silent contract to be bought with gold later. Next time, it'll be jewelry for him, and they'll own him completely. But it's not that simple. The Baron is tripping if he thinks he can buy Kalian's loyalty with some shiny trinkets." He ordered Jan to price-check the necklace and wire the full amount to the Baron immediately. Jan boxed the necklace back up, confused. "We're buying this? It's, like, a one-of-a-kind piece." Kalian cut him off. He wasn't buying it for the rarity. Actually, the award for most unique aesthetic went to something else. He pointed to a potted carnivorous plant. Jan checked the tag nervously. It was from the Mage Association. Kalian remarked that mages definitely had a twisted sense of beauty if they were selling this creature as a gift. Jan found a note attached. It was super rare, complete with a care manual. A magical flower that glows with bioluminescent pollen, right before it dies a hit with the herbalist crowd. Kalian stared at the plant, surprised, then smiled as a light bulb went off in his head. Jan asked if they should return it, but Kalian said, "No, we keep it." He had a plan. Time skipped forward. Tea was served, and suddenly, crash. The cup shattered, and the maid froze, spinning around. Jan rushed the prince, asking if he was hurt, but Kalian brushed it off. "Hand slipped," he said coolly. though it was a shame about the wasted tea. Jan barked at the servants to clean the mess, annoyed that the splash zone had reached the plant. It was a gift, too. You think it'll survive? Kalian replied calmly. It'll be fine. The tea isn't poisoned, right? Meanwhile, the maid picking up shards started sweating bullets. Kalian told her to leave the flower. He liked the vibe. But thanks to the poison in the tea, the leaf instantly began to wither and die. That evening, Kalian sneaked out of the palace with his teacher, thanking him for carving out time from his crazy schedule. Alan waved it off, saying no thanks were needed. Besides, how could he say no when the prince was gambling with his life? He chuckled awkwardly, noting Kalian looked way less miserable outside the palace walls. Kalian confirmed it with a grin, almost letting a secret slip. He nervously told the teacher this was his lovely, long-awaited walk, swallowing the words that he almost admitted it was his first time ever stepping outside. He had to lock it in. He was Kalian now. No slipping up. Man, feels like I haven't breathed fresh air in forever, he muttered. Alan shot him a look. Did the king actually sign off on this little field trip? Kalian shrugged, keeping it casual. Guess we're about to find out. Zero surprise there. If he got caught, well, he was already in deep anyway. Totally ghosted Yan back there, Kalian admitted. Told the poor guy I'd be back by dawn. Definitely meant midnight. Alan smirked, shaking his head. You really are my student. Kalian grinned. I'll take that as a badge of honor. Then the mood shifted. You taking your antidote? Alan's eyes went cold, searching for any sign of weakness. Popped one this morning, feeling solid. The poisoner was probably freaking out right now, wondering why the prince wasn't dead yet. They were spiraling, just waiting for them to bite the hook. Alan chuckled softly. Resourceful kid. You got guts. Don't give me all the credit, Kalian shot back. We'd be toast without that gift you sent. That was the real MVP. Alan wheeled his horse around, letting out a heavy sigh. He clearly hated leaving him solo in the city. I should stick around. Kalian yanked his hood up, laughing off the concern. Relax, old man. I got this. Alan narrowed his eyes. Mages Association. Tina Street, he commanded. Meet me there the second you handle your business. Don't be late. With a quick nod, they split. Kalian vanished into the bustling shopping district, blending into the crowd. First, stop a blacksmith. He grabbed a sword, weighing the dagger in his hand. Perfect balance. Deadly sharp. It was a temporary fix until his custom gear was ready. He moved toward the dark alley, staring into the abyss. Time for intel. Secretia had eyes everywhere, a massive spy web spanning the entire continent. But they weren't just watchers. These agents were built different. Years of brutal training to become elite assassins. And the architects of this deadly network, none other than his father, King de Blon. And Burn, his past self. He hopped off his horse on Tina Street, right in front of the target. He eyed the sign hanging above the dovecote. He knew exactly how lethal this place could be. He'd trained these killers himself back in the day. Now he was walking in as the Prince of Kalis. Talk about a plot twist. Two drunks stumbled by. Kalian tugged his hood lower. If they clocked him near this base, game over. No safe return. Black hair, red eyes, way too distinct. He slipped inside. The place was surprisingly massive, way bigger than the outside suggested. The shopkeeper sized him up immediately. Looking for a pigeon, Kalian kept his cool. Nope. Those birds aren't up yet. The man didn't miss a beat. They just love to sleep, huh? Kalian stepped closer, a knowing smirk playing on his lips. Maybe they're exhausted. Long flight and all. Exactly why they're snoozing, the man countered. Kalian spotted the dummy birds lining the shelf. Keyholes in their necks. Tired birds can rest their wings here. The keeper's eyes narrowed, suspicion spiking. Why are you really here? He growled. Bird food, Kalian replied smoothly. Looks like I found the right spot. A knife tore through the air, cutting Kalian's hood. Don't recall selling pigeons to you lately, kid. Kalian didn't flinch. This guy was no amateur. Fighting in this weak body would be messy. He pushed the blade away, smiling like he owned the place. Bird just left the nest for a snack. Can't exactly sell a bird that's already gone, can you? Birds meant agents. Secretia kept them totally siloed, anonymous even to each other. Maximum security. That way if one gets burned, Secretia stays clean. Whose bird are you? The man demanded, blade still ready. Time to bluff. He'd use his father's code. Even if he lied, no one could verify it. I'm a nebula bird, he stated flatly. The man's eyes went wide. Shock registered. Kalian pressed his advantage. Feed me. This bird needs info. The irony was delicious, the Prince of Kalis using Secretia's own spies to rob Kalis blind. The man triggered a mechanism. A hidden passage to the second floor creaked open. This way. Kalian followed, scanning the layout. Nice setup, he thought. A classic hidden fortress right under everyone's noses. The keeper glanced back. You're new. Remember the name. You'll be seeing me around. I'm White Eagle. Kalian nodded, playing the game. Call me Red Swan. They reached the secure room. What kind of food? Kalian crouched, locking eyes with the spy. One item. One specific piece of intel. The man extended a hand instantly. 8 florins. Up front. Kalian blinked, confused. You named the price before I even told you what I wanted. The intel he got was suspect. Was this guy playing him? Trying to get him to lower his defenses for a surprise attack? Catching the skepticism in his eyes, White Eagle just shrugged. Price is fixed, buddy. Callian didn't argue and slid the payment across the table. In exchange, the scroll changed hands. Callian unrolled it, scanning every inch of the parchment. You sure this is legit? White Eagle scoffed at the question. For the zone you're looking at, that's the only spot that fits the bill. Solid info, thanks. Callian nodded, turning on his heel to exit. But just as he reached the door, White Eagle's voice stopped him. Watch your back. The broker flashed a grin that didn't reach his eyes. The rules out there, they don't play nice. Callian returned the smile and walked out, but his mind was racing. That place might be brutal, but a predator like White Eagle coiled and ready to strike. That's the real nightmare. Callian mounted his steed and galloped toward the coordinates his route, cutting across an old bridge. Up ahead, the path was choked with figures draped in heavy robes. What the hell was a crowd doing out here in the dead of night? The last thing he needed was eyes on him, but the map said cross the bridge, so he had to push through. Fast. He urged the horse forward, but a robed figure stepped directly in his way. Callian reined in, annoyance flaring. Hey, what's the holdup? Why are you blocking the road? The stranger bowed, his head voice somber. Forgive me, traveler. The departed are embarking on their final voyage. If you can spare a moment, please let them pass. Callian blinked, confused. Then he looked past the man and saw it glowing lotus blossoms, drifting downstream, each carrying a flickering candle. A funeral procession. The irritation vanished and he hopped off his horse instantly. I won't block the dead's path, Callian murmured, stepping aside. I can wait. The mourner nodded his gratitude. Watching the tiny flames dance on the dark water, Callian mused on how every culture has its own ritual for the final goodbye. Here in Ceres, legend says if the living cross a bridge while red flowers float beneath the dead lose their way to the afterlife. Back in his homeland Secretia, it's different. They plant the sinistar atop the grave, a bloom that shines white by day and deep blue by night. It symbolizes a tragic reality, that two souls can never meet again. It's a stark reminder that the living and the dead walk separate paths. They should never intersect. Callian looked away, a pang of sorrow hitting him. Did his brother plant a sinistar on his grave? Or did time rewind before he had the chance? Maybe Callian himself is the wandering soul who lost his way. Suddenly, the mourner returned. Thank you for your patience, the man said, gesturing to the open bridge. You may cross now. Callian glanced at him, eyes heavy with unspoken grief. Whatever the truth, that past is gone. Now he's just the third prince of Ceres. He vaulted back into the saddle with a smooth, practiced motion. Rest in peace, he whispered, offering a silent prayer. But as the horse jolted forward, his hood slipped back, revealing his face in the moonlight. The mourner froze, eyes widening in recognition. Callian didn't notice. He just rode off into the night. As he vanished, a voice called out from the crowd. Arsene, we need to move. Are you even listening? But Arsene, the very mage who murdered Prince Secretia, stood rooted to the spot. I just thought, Arsene murmured, staring at the empty road. He seemed like a good person. Meanwhile, Callian reached his destination. He'd passed a dozen signs for Sisphonian booze on the way, but this place was overkill. The air practically reeked of the stuff. He eyed the gaudy sign, baffled. So, the rumors about secret agents using obvious fronts, turns out they weren't just fairy tales from his childhood. He stepped up to the entrance. A bouncer immediately blocked him. I'll show you to a table. Callian shook his head. No need. I'm heading to the 4th floor. The bouncer's demeanor shifted instantly. Right this way. They cut through the noisy tavern to a secluded empty room in the back. Enjoy your evening, the man said, closing the door. Callian scanned the room. A coat rack on the wall looked normal except for one hook that seemed off. This matched the intel from White Eagle perfectly. He'd asked for the epicenter of Ceres' underworld. He twisted the hook. Click. A hidden panel slid open. The 4th floor code for a 2-story building, classic misdirection. It didn't mean go up, it meant go down. 4 floors down. A secret basement complex. The info he needed wasn't about simple poker games. This was darker. He moved past the casual gambling den and located room number 4. He stepped inside and the roar hit him. An illegal fighting pit. The crowd was going feral, screaming for blood as money changed hands. In the center of the carnage, the match ended. Bloody Gerard takes the win, the announcer bellowed. While the winners celebrated their payday, the loser was unceremoniously dragged out of the ring like a sack of trash. The crowd jeered, spitting insults at the unconscious fighter. Callian watched, disgusted. The metallic stench of fresh blood hung heavy in the air. Not a shred of humanity left in this place. Just violence and greed. It turned his stomach. Suddenly, a voice snapped him out of it. Entrance fee, now. The gatekeeper barked. Callian tossed the coin without looking. Hina, get over here, the man shouted, summoning a girl from the shadows. Take me to room 27. He didn't ask. He commanded. A young girl, looking completely out of place, rushed to Callian, grabbed his hand, and frantically tapped her lips. Mute? Or does she just want me to follow? He wondered as she guided him to his seat. That's when he spotted them, her ears. They were wrong. Clipped. Mutilated. And judging by those rags, she wasn't playing dress-up. She was property stripped of her free will. Every girl in the pit wore a collar, a tracking leash, to keep the livestock from running. The girl jabbed a finger at him, demanding his focus, then pointed sharply at the tray. The message was loud and clear. Pay up. Place your bet. He flicked a few gold coins onto the tray. If he wanted answers, he had to play their sick game. Rules implies fairness. This was just a meat grinder. You throw cash down, men tear each other apart, and if your fighter survives, you double your stack. 3 Ploran turns to 6. 6 hits 12. Rinse and repeat until your pockets burst, or until you lose it all. But Kalyan, he was cleaning house. His stack of chips was turning into a tower. Just like that, 3 measly Ploran exploded into 1,536. Whispers rippled through the staff. Who is this whale? Kalyan just smirked. He wasn't here for the payout. Then the main event. In the white corner, the bloody hammer Sion, and facing the undefeated champion, Kalyan leaned over the railing, heart pounding. It was him, Kiri. Back when he was burned, he'd confessed the truth, raised in a hellhole where fighting meant eating right until his sister perished. And now, that nightmare was standing right in front of him. The memory hit him hard. He'd asked, "Do you want to be a knight?" And Kyrie had answered without hesitation, that he would be His Highness's sword. He kept that vow until his dying breath. Here, they just called him Monster. Mocking his mismatched eyes, Kalyan didn't hesitate. All in on black. Every single chip on Kyrie. Hina stared at the mountain of chips, eyes wide. The crowd murmured, was this guy blind? Or did he know something they didn't? Maybe he was just clinically insane. The announcer's voice boomed. Current win rate 0%. He's never won a match, folks. Can he redeem himself, or is he just fresh meat? The ticket taker from earlier rushed over, sweating bullets. Sir, that's a massive bet. You don't need to throw it away, he pleaded, genuinely pitying the fool. Bet on the other guy. That idiot in black is walking dead. Hina flinched at the insult, but Kalyan snapped his fingers, drawing her gaze back. Did you count it? He asked, coolly nodding at the stack on black. Make sure it's all there. The man threw his hands up. Fine. When you lose everything you just earned, don't come crying to me. Sion was known for cruelty, not mercy. The arena buzzed with bloodlust. A heckler screamed at Sion. Make it hurt. Finish him and the payout hits tenfold. How is that trash even still breathing? Kyrie tuned out the noise, locking eyes with Kalyan for a split second. Across the ring, Sion sneered. New guy's gonna go broke. Blinded by greed, betting on a cockroach like you. The shackles clattered to the floor. Bell rings. Fight on. Sion was a blur, vanishing from his spot to launch a devastating hook. Kiri barely slipped it. But Sion was fast. A second fist came flying from the right. Kiri threw up a forearm block instantly. Crunch. The impact rattled his bones. Too slow, Sion roared, burying a heavy kick into Kyrie's gut, launching him across the ring. Kiri slammed into the fence, coughing up a spray of blood. Finish him, the crowd screamed. Stop kicking and use your fists. Pound him. Sion unleashed a barrage of punches. Kalyan gripped the rail knuckles white. Without a sword, he's getting ragdolled. Why, he's better than this. Kiri tried to counter, but Sion weaved effortlessly, smirking. Told you, you're moving in slow motion. Wham, another hit. Die, you, tenacious cockroach. Blood painted the canvas. Sion stepped in windmilling punches. This ends now. He wound up for the kill shot. He's going to lose. Kalyan didn't think he vaulted from his seat, screaming over the crowd's roar. Guard your shoulders, cover up. Kiri's eyes snapped open. He obeyed instantly. Sion's fist aimed for the kill. Kiri ducked, slipped underneath, and coiled his body, tucking his arms tight. Kalyan grinned. Checkmate. Kiri exploded upward, driving a fist into Sion's solar plexus. The giant stumbled, balance gone. Then came the second blow. A brutal cross to the face. Teeth flew. Sion hit the floor like a sack of bricks out cold. The arena went dead silent. Brains couldn't process the visual. Then a lone shout pierced the quiet. The monster just dropped the hammer. Kalyan bagged his first victory, and the crowd went absolutely feral, cursing him out like he stole their lunch money. Kiri, though, he just locked eyes with the victor, his gaze heavy and unblinking. Kalyan flashed a savage grin, soaking up the hate like it was applause. Suddenly, a hulking goon stepped up, looming over him. Boss wants a word. Someone's looking for you. Come with me. He let the muscle escort him into the lion's den, the ringmaster's private office. The boss man leaned back, sizing him up. You got skills, kid. Real talent. Racked up nearly 6,000 florins in just 3 matches. The atmosphere shifted instantly. His lackeys rested their hands on their weapons, fingers twitching. Gotta admit, I'm sweating a bit, handing that much cash to a nobody. Kalyan let out a low, dark chuckle. I figured you'd at least try to cut a deal, he mocked, eyes cold. Turns out you're way dumber than you look. That hit a nerve. The boss's face twisted in rage. Who do you think you're talking to, punk? Take off that hood. Let's see the face of the guy signing his death warrant. Kalyan tilted his head, voice dripping with amusement. You sure about that? Seeing my face comes with a price tag you can't afford. Heavy consequences, my friend. The boss sneered, waving a dismissive hand. I love surprises. He signaled his goon to do the honors, and the man stomped toward Callion. Let's see what you're hiding, pretty boy, the thug grunted, invading his personal space. Enough games. How cool do you think you are, hiding under there? But the second those fingers grazed the fabric of his hood, schlick, Callion drove a dagger straight through the guy's hand. The scream that tore out of him shattered the room's tension. The other guards froze, eyes wide, brains processing the sudden violence. Callion didn't even flinch. I gave you credit for having common sense, he drawled over the agonizing screams. Guess I aimed too high. The ringmaster's blood ran cold. He realized too late he wasn't dealing with a rookie. He'd invited a psychopath into his office who didn't hesitate to spill blood. Look, it's too much cash to drop at once. Just give us a minute, we'll get the money. Callion twirled the bloody dagger between his fingers like a fidget spinner. Keep your change. I don't want the money. Give me the monster-eyed fighter instead. Kyrie. The boss panicked. That kid was his new golden goose. Are you crazy? He just started paying off. The master would have my head. He caught himself before the excuse fully left his lips. Arguing logic with a knife-wielding maniac was complete nonsense. If he said no, he was dead meat. But then he did the math. Callion was fast, sure, but he was one guy trapped in a room full of armed thugs. He opened his mouth to order the attack, but Callion was already 10 steps ahead of him. Boom! Callion flared his aura, a crushing pressure that slammed into the room. The boss didn't just feel fear. He felt a literal breeze where his pants used to be. Callion's aura had shredded the guy's trousers, exposing his bright pink underwear to the room. So Callion asked casually, do I take my 6,000 florins and your life, or do we negotiate? The boss was shaking in his strawberry-colored briefs. An aura user. Here, get him, he shrieked at his men. Drag Kyrie in here right now. While the goons scrambled, Callion subtly covered his mouth, wiping away a thin trickle of blood that had escaped. Can't pull that stunt again, he thought grimly. His current body was too weak to handle that level of power. He had to bluff his way to the finish line. The henchman returned solo, looking nervous. Problem, boss. Kyrie ain't moving an inch without Hina. Callion paused. Hina. Then it clicked. The sister Kyrie had told him about in the original timeline. In the past, she chose death, and a broken Kyrie vanished into the shadows, crushed by guilt. Callion pushed the memory away and waved a lazy hand. Whatever. Just drag 'em, both in, the boss yelled, desperate to end this. No, Callion interjected, stepping forward. I'll collect them myself. The ringmaster was ready to pack their bags just to get this monster out of his office, but Callion wasn't done. He held out his hand, palm up. You're forgetting something. My entry fee. And my winnings. He took every last coin before coolly escorting Kiri and Hina out of that hellhole. Once outside, the siblings looked like deer in headlights. Kiri wrapped his arms around his trembling sister, eyes darting to Callion. Thank you, he whispered, for getting us out. He opened his mouth to ask the obvious. Why, but Callion cut him off. Save the suspicion. You're overthinking it. Callion whipped off his cloak and draped it gently over the shivering girl. I'm not your enemy. Then he pulled back his hood. Kiri's jaw hit the floor. It was the third prince standing right in front of him. Kiri instantly dropped his head, panic rising. Your Highness, the first. I didn't recognize you. Forgive my insolence. Callion reached out, placing a firm hand on Kiri's shoulder. Lift your head. None of that. I'm the one who shouldn't be bowed to. He looked at them, half-elves, ragged broke. Life had chewed them up and spit them out. In his past life, Kiri had failed to protect Hina. Not this time. Callion pointed a finger at the boy. You leave your shoulder open when you fight. Classic rookie mistake. Tell me you trying to become a knight or something. Kyrie glanced at Hina, eyes burning with resolve. Not just a knight, he declared. I want to be a sword. A weapon that protects everything in this world. Bold answer. Callion smiled genuinely this time. He tossed a sheathed sword through the air. You can't just become a knight overnight. Be a shield first, Callion advised as Kiri caught the weapon. If you really want to master the blade, find your own path. He turned, walking back to his horse. Kyrie stared at the high-quality weapon in his hands, stunned. Your Highness, why give me something so valuable? Callion glanced back with a smirk. 'Cause you need a decent blade if you're going to survive. It was the least he could do to repay the loyalty and fun from a past life. Meanwhile, at the Mage Association, Alan watched a letter turn to ash in his hand. The mage he'd sent to the Fight Club had reported back with some interesting news. Prince Callion told Melfer Pollen that the chandelier made him nervous, the report said, asked him to inspect it. And sure enough, the Baron found a severed rope, sweating bullets the whole time. Alan narrowed his eyes. How in the hell did the prince know about that trap? Finally, our MC drags himself in, flashing a weak smile that screams, I'm totally fine, but the mage instantly clocks his wrecked appearance. Alan's brow furrows. Did you get jumped? Look at your clothes. The prince shakes his head. No brawl, just a situation. The mage sighs, brewing some tea to calm the nerves. Judging by that tone, he says, I'm guessing today was a total chaotic mess. Alan isn't wrong. It's been one heck of a long day. Internal monologue. Time. He secured Kyrie and set the bait for the poisoner. Check and check. Everything's hitting the plot points perfectly, so why the bad vibes? Maybe he's speedrunning this timeline too hard. Alan shoots him a suspicious glare while telekinetically pouring tea. Kalian chuckles, finally looking like a real wizard's lair in here. Alan smirks back. What were you expecting? Eyeballs floating in a bubbling cauldron. Or something spooky like that. Kalian nods with a grin, scanning the room. It's actually pretty normal, except for that unsheathed dagger sitting casually on the table. Totally out of place. Wait, that's his dagger. The exact same one. A chill runs down his spine. Alan catches his stare, curious about the decor. Doesn't really fit the vibe, Kalian mutters. Suddenly, Alan flicks his finger, and the blade levitates. It spins, locking onto Kalian. Panic spikes, no time to dodge. Thwack. The dagger strikes home. Crimson splashes across the floor as the prince coughs up blood. Alan watches, cold-faced. Even with that wrecked body, your reflexes are insane. MC managed to flare his aura for a split-second shield, but his weak HP bar couldn't handle the recoil. Alan recalls the blade. Relax. It's a Cispanian artifact. Copies the enemy's hidden weapon. Call it a warning shot. Kalian gasps for air, realizing it was a test, not an assassination. But he messed up. He got triggered and popped his aura. Alan leans in. You have aura, but you've never touched a sword. He heals the prince's shoulder voice, dropping low. Our first meeting was weird enough, but things are getting way too suspicious. Alan starts dropping receipts. The king says you're terrified of horses. The nobles say you're basically a body snatcher. You get poisoned, and instead of crying, you look like you want to murder someone. That's the energy of a killer, not a sheltered prince. And let's not forget you predicted that accident at the writing show and stopped it cold. So, care to explain yourself to your teacher? The MC feels the healing magic surge. Alan is healing him, yet grilling him. It's a paradox. But looking into the mage's eyes, Kalian realizes Alan wants to trust him. He clenches his fist, steeling his nerves. Time to come clean. I am not Kalian. My name is Burn Secretia. He drops the entire lore dump. The room goes dead silent. Alan sighs, clutching his forehead. So, the time axis. But real talk, is the actual Prince Kalian dead? Our MC shakes his head. I don't think so. I didn't get it at first, but I can feel him. A faint signal from the kid is still here. Alan stares him down, then rubs his temples. When we met, you said you didn't want the crown. So what's the endgame here? MC replies instantly, stopping the war. I still don't know why Plants is after the time axis. If I don't fix the root cause, history's just gonna put on a rerun. I need to find the truth. Alan pauses. Do you want this for yourself, for the prince, or for Burn's brother? Chase MC blinks. Excuse me. Here's the thing, Alan says darkly. In Secretia, there is only one Prince Chase, son of the concubine. The queen has 0 kids. There is no Burn in the history books. The words hit MC like a thunderclap. Brain processing. Error. Not in Secretia nowhere. Why did the time travel glitch reality? Did the time axis delete him to make room for this possession? He stares at his hand, Kalian's hand. This body lived a full life. He grips his fist tight. I can feel Kalian, but since I'm occupying his space, maybe the universe decided 2 Burns can't exist. He squeezes his eyes shut. Guilt trips him hard. He basically hijacked a life. Alan breaks the mood. Meanwhile, the current Chase is already locking down his power. Since his memories of the past no longer matched the present reality, the future was a total blank slate, meaning as the third Prince of Kairos, constantly living with a target on his back, he couldn't waste energy worrying about the crown prince of Secretia. That version of him was handling business just fine. Kalian caught the confident glint in the mage's eyes. He smirked, realizing the subtext Alan was telling him to embrace this life, to completely sever ties with the past. He appreciated the concern, but he needed to set the record straight. Your fears are groundless. The moment I opened my eyes in Kyrus, I buried the ghost of Burn. That stunned the mage. He pressed on, asking if Kalian truly felt no attachment despite being an imposter in the prince's body. Alan stared blankly for a second, then let out a low chuckle. He confessed he'd been agonizing over that exact thing, wondering what had him so confused. Let me make one thing crystal clear right now. My alliance is with you and you alone. Satisfied with that answer, they headed back to the palace. Kalian dropped the big question. What do you know about the time axis? Alan's expression said it all he knew. Alan didn't hold back. Last year around this exact time, Prince Chase interrogated me about the time axis. He even infiltrated Secretia in secret, but his investigation hit a dead end, uncovering only one truth: it wasn't human-made. Then 1 month ago, intel arrived that the time axis had vanished from Secretia completely. You rewound time 10 years exactly 1 month ago, didn't you? Kalian's eyes went wide. Did my regression shatter the axis? He demanded to know the cause of the time slip and the axis's destruction. Alan shut him down instantly. Racking our brains won't give us the answers we need. But there is someone we can ask. Someone with knowledge far beyond ours. You'll meet him soon, Sisfanian. Kallian's gaze drifted to the towering dragon statue in the square, realizing his coming-of-age ceremony was just around the corner. The Rosalita. The ultimate trial for a Prince of Kiris to prove his bloodline is pure. The goal, locate an empty Sisfanian nest to commune with the dragon's will. Alan warned that survival was the only metric that mattered for passing the ceremony. So, let me handle this poison tea situation, Kallian decided. I need to wrap this up fast. That seed I planted, it should be sprouting right about now. He rushed back to his chambers and beelined for the carnivorous plant. Ian was waiting, fuming. Do you have any idea how panicked I was? You promised midnight. It is literally dawn. Kallian tuned out the nagging, focusing entirely on the plant's leaves. Still vibrant green. Perfect. He turned to Ian, who sighed. If you're finally ready to sleep, I'll prep the bed. Kallian cut him off, a mischievous grin spreading across his face. Forget sleep. Come see something cool. He bolted for the terrace. Ian scrambled after him, confused. My prince, it's freezing. Just getting light out here. Kallian scanned the darkness, hunting for a sign. Then he saw it. The flower pot, gifted by the Mage Association, was shedding a luminous, glowing pollen. Because the species is so rare, no one knew its post-death properties. Earlier, Kallian had accidentally drenched the plant in his poisoned tea, in front of a full audience. That tea was laced with a lethal toxin, potent enough to wipe out a crowd within a week. If that plant had actually absorbed it, it would be dead mulch. Yet here it was, fresh, healthy, and functional, which meant someone had swapped it out to hide the evidence, unaware that the death state triggers the glowing pollen. Ian gasped, mesmerized by the sparkling trail, winding through the palace grounds. The culprit couldn't just trash the evidence, so they stashed it somewhere safe. Huge mistake. The pollen wasn't just glowing, it was a GPS tracker leading Kallian to the villain, and that glowing path led straight to the doorstep of Hesia Palace. Queen Celeste. Gotcha. Morning broke with gray skies and heavy rain. Kallian stood by the window as his door creaked open. Ian entered. Good morning, Your Highness. Ian blinked, startled to see Kallian already awake and alert. The night was productive, Kallian replied. Ian set the tea tray down, chuckling nervously. I'm not used to you greeting me first. Usually I'm the one dragging you out of bed. Kallian flashed a faint smile. Just an early start. Ian handed him the cup. First time for everything, I suppose. Kallian accepted the poisoned chalice. Ian gazed out at the storm. Did the rain wake you? Kallian took a slow sip. The flavor profile had shifted. Subtle, but distinct. Celeste didn't just try again. She upped the dosage. Kallian grilled Jan about the upcoming social calendar. Any major events this week where the high society vultures would be gathering. Jan confirmed a massive conference next week, King included. Kallian took a slow, calculated sip of his tea. Post-conference banquet. Perfect. The ideal stage for his little performance. A perfect night to chug a lethal dose of poisoned tea. He stared out the window, mentally daring the queen. Bring it on, Silica. Down the hatch goes the antidote. Jan, clueless and chipper, asked what pills he's been popping lately. Kallian snapped back. Vitamins. He could feel his body failing him. Needs food fast. He cinched the medicine bag tight and stashed it before Jan could snoop. The servant sensed the vibe shift and just focused on getting the prince dressed. Stepping out, his eyes lingered on that empty cup. Why did that hollow piece of porcelain haunt him so much? Breakfast time. Kallian scanned the table, eyes locking onto the glaringly empty chair. Ever since the horse-riding disaster, Prince Plants had been ghosting family meals. Good riddance. One less variable to mess up the plan. He shifted his gaze to Randall and dropped a bomb. Roses are blooming soon. Randall's head snapped up instantly. A long, calculating stare. Then Randall stood up and walked out without a word. Yan leaned in, whispering. Why the sudden interest in flowers? Kallian shrugged. Just saw them on a walk. Reminded him of seeing Randall's brother, tending to roses. That's all. Outside, the rain was relentless, but Kallian didn't care. Time to grind. Mile after mile, he finally collapsed against a tree, gasping. Then a shadow loomed over him. His teacher. You look worse every day, the mage noted, sarcasm dripping. Is self-torture your new hobby? Skip endurance training and I lose control, Kallian panted. Where have you been hiding? Just a quick chat with Rumain, Alan said. Kallian blinked. You're on a first-name basis with the king. Alan shrugged, totally unbothered. Not close, really. It's one-sided. Kid's young enough to be my grandson anyway. He waved it off. So you summoned me. 2 favors, Kallian said, locking eyes. First, I need a background check on 2 specific targets. Alan nodded. Child's play. Second, I want a full-blown investigation. Every shady deal involving the nobles. Specifically the Breezen family. Alan smirked, mulling it over. Doable. But you're really working me to the bone here. What's the rush? She upped the poison dosage, Kallian revealed. Alan's eyes narrowed. So you found our culprit. Kallian nodded. I know who it is. and she's about to start watching me like a hawk. She can't touch a great mage easily, Kalian reasoned, but right now I need to power up. Fast. Alan raised a brow, skeptical. So I'm your meat shield, no, Kalian corrected. You're my weapon. Kalian's eyes darkened. He remembered the White Demon's army, legions of mages that destroyed his homeland. That's why I'm building a mage squad. Alan scoffed. Mages aren't knights, kid. You can't just drill them like soldiers. You get that right. Actually, it is possible. Alan stared stunned, then let out a nervous chuckle. When Rumain tried it, everyone laughed, Kalian explained. They thought he was delusional. Even the Brizens ignored him. They didn't think he was worth the energy. So Rumain succeeded. But the moment the squad was ready, he died. Suspiciously. The squad went to Plants, the new king. And we both know how that nightmare ended. This time is different. The Brizens will be blocking us every step of the way. That's why I'm negotiating, using the queen's own poison tea as leverage. Alan looked blank. How exactly? Alan asked. Kalian smirked. Secret. Just know, it starts soon. Alan grabbed his head, groaning. So reassuring. Ask Rumian if you're worried, Kalian shot back. He's got plans too. We use Silica's mistake against her. That's how we win. Meanwhile, the maid reported back to the queen. Dosage increased as ordered. Silica wasn't impressed. Clink. She set her tea down hard. I need to handle this perfectly. Too much bad news lately. I thought I was done with these annoyances, she hissed. The maid trembled. Understood, Your Majesty. Plant's voice sliced through the silence. He demanded to know if his mother was plotting something twisted again. She shot back, claiming the person who should be acting was doing absolutely nothing, leaving her no choice but to endure this misery. He stormed up to her, snapping that he didn't give a damn. He only came to deliver a message. She claimed he was useless, that he had no right to call the shots. But what was the alternative? This suffering was apparently written in her stars. He clenched his fist, knuckles turning white, and bolted from the room. Silica hurled a mocking insult at his retreating back, calling him weak. She vowed to do whatever it took to ensure not a single soul or thing blocked her path. Finally, the day of the palace trip rolled around. Hina was organizing outfits, humming a cheerful little tune. Her brother teased her, noting that her mood was suspiciously bright today. Was she really that hyped? With a beaming smile and excited gestures, she told him they were finally palace-bound, which meant a chance to see the prince. He patted her head, asking if she was really crushing on him that hard. She nodded enthusiastically, wishing nightfall would just hurry up and get here. Meanwhile, the palace staff was busy prepping Kalian for the upcoming dinner. Jan adjusted the prince's collar, mentioning that the nobles' meeting was in full swing, so Kalian needed to make his entrance in exactly 1 hour. Kalian fished something out from a hidden pocket and flashed a knowing smile, telling Jan he had a special mission for him. With that, he headed straight for the queen, thinking it was high time to put an end to the poisoned tea charade, a beverage served exclusively to the weakest prince. The second this stops, everything changes. The doors to the queen's office flew open. He strode inside, radiating confidence, and locked eyes with her. At the same time, Jan was galloping away to execute his orders. Before splitting up, the prince had handed him 2 letters. One was for the Magic Association, the other for his teacher. The instructions were strict: hit the association first, and only then find the teacher. Jan had freaked out, realizing the prince intended to face the banquet entirely alone. Cutting off any protests, Kalian insisted he could handle the rest solo. He told Yan not to stress, but Yan was definitely stressing. This felt like déjà vu. Maybe he was overreacting. He wanted to believe the prince was untouchable, but history had a nasty way of repeating itself. At the banquet, Kalian downed a drink and collapsed right in front of the queen, crimson liquid spilling from his lips. While this nightmare scenario played out in Jan's head, Alan was at the association with Yuria Seiren. She confirmed everything was set. A mountain of documents had been compiled, and even though she only reviewed official cases, the lack of public records was incredibly sus. Alan agreed, noting that minor nobles would never have the guts to interrogate the Brisson family. She nodded. If they had tried, they would have been the next cold case. But what was the prince's angle here? Alan stayed quiet. Suddenly, the door burst open and a breathless Jan appeared. He frantically called out to Yuria, but seeing Alan there, he gasped in relief. The prince had sent letters for both of them. The moment Alan scanned the letter, his expression turned dark. He grabbed his gear, muttered a curse, and sprinted for the door, demanding the location of this banquet. Jan warned him that without an official invite, he wouldn't get past security. Alan whipped around, screaming that protocol didn't matter right now. His master was walking into a death trap. His outburst sent Jan into a full-blown panic. In the letter to his teacher, Kalian had confessed that today, he was making a deal with Silica, gambling his own life as the chip. If the plan went south, Alan needed to save him. 1 hour prior, Kalian stepped into the queen's office. A servant poured their tea, and the moment the door clicked shut, leaving them alone, Kalian pointed out their solitude and suggested they drop the masks. Silica snapped her fan shut, and slammed it onto the table, claiming she was game, though she doubted it would change anything. He took a slow sip of tea, reiterating his proposal for total honesty, while keeping things civil, of course. She crossed her arms, admitting she'd been curious about what he had to say, but it turned out he just wanted to bicker. She already regretted giving him the time of day typical behavior for someone of his lowly status. He was being rude, but when he dropped the line about the poisoned tea, she went dead silent, her gaze piercing through him. He smiled, suggesting they just get it over with. He remained calm even as his throat tightened in disgust. She forced a nervous smile, pretending she had no clue. What he was rambling about then let out a hollow laugh. He pressed on, asking if she was really going to play the ignorance card. He figured she would, so he came prepared. He pulled the sugar cubes he got from the White Eagle out of his pocket, explaining that he had to take a massive risk to stop her from pulling this stunt ever again. Right now, all he had was a resilient heart, so he was going all in. This was a poison designed to stop a heart for a long, agonizing time. The queen's hand trembled. He dumped the entire dose of poison into his tea, noting coolly that this particular toxin doesn't react with silver. Magic tests can't even detect it. His blessing is basically the ultimate stealth mode. His heart keeps pumping like nothing's wrong. But there's a catch. That power is a single target spell. So while the blessing is busy neutralizing this new toxin, the poison cocktail he's been chugging for weeks is now free to wreck his entire system. And the first person to crack the queen just loses it. She starts cackling like a maniac, totally unable to control herself. Does this kid seriously think he calls the shots? Is this her first rodeo? Please. Everyone in this room knows she's the one who punched his mother's ticket to the afterlife. That hits him hard, but Callian keeps his face stone cold. So what's the move with this tea? She smirks, daring him to down the whole thing. Challenge accepted. He takes a few heavy sips. The queen watches him drain the cup, thinking, what a moron. Who's gonna check her? Even Roman is walking on eggshells around her. She owns Kalis. The queen's throne is practically hers already. She just deletes obstacles one by one, stepping over them to get exactly what she wants. Just one loose end left. But the second the evening banquet kicks off, Callian starts hacking up crimson. The queen hides a wicked grin behind her fan, loving every second of it. Panic erupts among the nobles. Callian hits the floor, completely wiped out by the poison. The princes and the king shoot out of their seats, everyone screaming for medics and guards. The queen just stares at Callian, thinking he's nothing more than roadkill on her path to glory, just like the rest of them. The crowd swarms the prince. Was the drink spiked? Impossible. His Majesty didn't even touch it yet. So he was poisoned pre-game. Who was he hanging out with earlier? One noble yells for everyone to shut up, or heads are gonna roll. Every single pair of eyes shifts to the queen. They know exactly who did this. She hears the whispers and smiles, untouchable. No one has the guts to accuse her. Another easy W for the queen. Roman is frantic, scrambling to his son. He pulls him up, begging him to wake up, screaming at the guards to find the priest. He's spiraling, ordering his son to keep his eyes open. He grabs Callian's hand, desperate. Flashback hits Roman hard. His mother died reaching out to him just like this, begging him to protect their boy. Seeing Callian in the exact same spot triggers Roman's rage. The queen chimes in, saying she never expected such a tragedy in her house. I can't watch this, she says, turning to leave for her palace. She heads for the door and Roman hisses, you trying to kill my son too. He screams her name, freezing the room. The nobles stare in terror. She spins around, actually shook. The king isn't staying quiet this time. The nobles smell blood in the water and start whispering louder. She was with him right before this. Was she plotting this the whole time? If she did it, the math adds up. The silence breaks. She is literally poisoning the prince in broad daylight. Psy-like snaps her fan open to hide her face, claiming she has zero clue what he's talking about. I heard Callian was a sickly kid. Roman explodes. You pulled this same act with Freya. Surrounded by her knights, she said the same thing back then, blaming it on illness again. Same face, same lie. She thinks, prove it, old man. No one's gonna side with you. Then she pivots. Was the child even healthy? The princes eat breakfast together every day. They should know Callian's status. Randall looks stress-tested. She presses them looking for an alibi. Roman barks, enough. She throws her hands up, claiming she's just concerned about the drama. Concerned about the kids, Roman rips his sword out, totally done with her lies. Then Franz drops the mic. Call anyone your kid, but not Callian. The queen looks at him stunned. Franz steps up. Callian was fine. Zero health issues. He even told us not to stress about him. She seethes, hissing his name, blindsided by his betrayal. And right at that second, a priest bursts into the hall. The queen uses the chaos to bolt, while the priest rushes to Callian. The king yells for him to use divine healing. The priest reaches out, but bam, he gets blasted back by a magical barrier. It's Alan. Alan storms in, looking frantic. Don't touch him. You'll only kill him. The king roars. What are you doing? He needs treatment now. Alan cuts him off. The prince has a mana circle in his heart. The room went dead silent. The stakes were terrifyingly clear. Everyone knew the rules. If a magic circle clashes with holy power, the host's heart doesn't just stop, it explodes. King Rumayan lost his composure entirely. Watching his son hack up blood, he whipped around to the mage, terror in his eyes. If holy power is a bust, then what magic? Can you fix him or not? Alan didn't sugarcoat it. If we're talking nature healing, maybe. It's a long shot. But standard magic. Useless. Rumain snapped desperation in his voice. Then figure something out. Look at him suffering. That's when the trauma hit. Alan looked at Callian but saw his own son dying from poisoned wine years ago. What hurts, he whispered. It was happening all over again with his student. He gently rested Callian's head on his lap. Callian blinked open, confused by the sudden tenderness. Why the sad face? Callian's eyes seemed to ask. Alan prepped a spell, his heart heavy. He never thought he'd cast this again in this lifetime. Back when his own son was fading, he had held him just like this, using magic to numb the agony. No more pain, he whispered. He cast the spell, and Callian's world faded to black. But outside, chaos was brewing. The city was papered in propaganda. Thousands of leaflets exposed the Brisson family, and the accusations were horrific. The screams of the dead demanded justice. Butchers the people cried. The Brissons were exposed for slaughtering 37 people. The public was out for blood. Rumors swirled that Queen Selike poisoned Prince Callian. Combined with her family's atrocities, she was cooked. Even the nobles bailed. No one wanted to be near the blast zone of this scandal. The streets were angry. Even the king pointed the finger at the queen for the poisoning. Who knew she was such a villain? Down with Selike became the chant. Meanwhile, Alan met with the king for a debrief. He dropped the bombshell. Prince Callian planned this. He said we needed to corner Selike to force her to approve the mage squad. Rumain was stunned. This was exactly what he had wanted. He stared at the documents, mind blown. His son was playing 4D chess, thinking exactly like a king. Later, the queen stormed into Callian's recovery room. She tried to play it cool. Building a squad of mages. That's tough work, isn't it? She probed. When did you find the time? Callian hit her with a weak, innocent smile. I have zero clue what you mean, stepmother. I'm just trying to recover here thanks to you. She forced a smile, analyzing him. He was at death's door a week ago, yet his voice is steady. She knew something was off, but Callian kept his mask on tight. I almost died, he rasped, playing the victim card perfectly. Talking is exhausting. If you're done, there's the door. I need to rest. He was dismissing her. She squeezed her knee, hiding her anxiety. How about a trade? She finally asked. 1 for 1. Callian scoffed. You should have offered that a week ago. The board has changed. But sure, amuse me. What's the offer? She bit her lip, nervous. If you say the intel you gathered is fake, I won't block your plans. Callian started chuckling, then full-on laughed. You seem confused. You think I still need your permission. Do you really have nothing else to offer? Snap? Her fan shattered in her grip. Name your price, she hissed. Callian's eyes went cold. He didn't just want to win. He wanted a purge. He needed the Brisson family erased from the palace. This is Sisfanian land, he declared. Why do we hear the clashing of private swords? He dropped the hammer, disband the Fable Knight Corps. That was her personal army given by her father to counter the king. Losing them meant losing everything. Without her knights, she was defenseless. Disband them, Callian ordered. And replace them with my mage squad. No compromise. Selike ground her teeth in silence. She was trapped. Checkmate. Callian signaled his servant, who slapped a document on the table. It wasn't just paper. It was a magical pledge. She stared at it, horrified. Is this an oath seal? Exactly, Callian confirmed. It binds the contract to your heart. Break it, your heart explodes. Instant death. Make your choice. Meanwhile, news of the Queen's visit reached Prince Randall. He was in the garden pruning roses. He paused, staring at the thorns with a melancholy look. He realized Callian had locked eyes with him right before collapsing that day. He planned to drag me into this game from the start. He was actually curious to see how this thorny rose would bloom. He recalled considering giving Callian what he wanted back when Plants was in the room. He spun on his heel, dropping the news that Callian was perfectly fine. Meanwhile, Randall was out in the garden, snipping roses with surgical precision, thinking. He never imagined Franz would fold like a cheap suit. The vibe had shifted. Something was definitely different. Just then, Celeste snapped, her temper flaring, and screamed for him to pump the brakes. If this was a blood oath then, but before she could finish her furious tirade, Callian tapped his chest dead center over his heart. Exactly. This is the magic that locks a promise, deep inside the soul. Break the vow, and her heart stops beating. Instant death. Celeste was fuming, biting her lips so hard it almost bled. It was checkmate. His trust in her was non-existent, so this was the only way. Cornered Celeste leaned back against the table and glared at the contract. She was shook, totally silent for a long beat. Suddenly, she snatched the pen right out of Ian's grip and scribbled her signature. The paper exploded with a blinding magical light, wrapping around her like a glowing shroud. Her hands blazed with mystical fire. Callian smirked, calling it absolute perfection. The trap was set. Celeste, vibrating with tension, slammed the pen onto the floor and stormed toward the door. That's when Callian decided to drop one last truth bomb. Just to be clear, he didn't want her getting the wrong idea. He and his brothers, they were never close. Franz didn't back down to save Callian. If she had uttered one more word, the king's blade would have sliced her throat right then and there. She froze the image of her son flashing in her mind. Her head dipped in sorrow, but then she stiffened her spine, and Speed walked out the exit without looking back. Callian watched her go, looking totally bewildered. A heartbeat later, Alan piped up, surprised. Celeste actually showed up. Meanwhile, our main character was demolishing a stash of bananas, stacking the peels like a tower. Alan cracked a smile, asking if his appetite was really that massive. Callian looked thrilled, grinning as he replied that the banana was top-tier delicious. Alan pressed him again. Was it tastier than literally coming back from the dead? And, eating real food, Callian tossed the final peel onto the stack, saying his job was done. Alan frowned. Was this kid mocking him? He almost lost his legs and his life if Hina hadn't stepped in. That girl channels the raw power of nature to heal. Without her, he would have been gone for good. Callian admitted he was shocked. Hina was a healer. Alan doubled down, asking, didn't he know that from his past life? Callian shook his head back. Then he had zero connection with Carrie. By the time he met him, she was already gone. Alan pieced it together, so he was saying he blindly flushed the poison knowing nothing, just banking on a miracle, gambling that the tea would work. He sourced the poison and drank it on a hunch. He was actually insane. He'd been bedridden for a week, helpless. What kind of madness was this? Callian just grinned, telling him he had it all wrong. Then he offered him a banana. Alan snapped, shouting that he was done with this. He told him to grab the documents himself. Callian took the package, ripped it open, and smiled. Alan explained it was the ID cards. For the crew he asked about. Callian chuckled, admitting he'd totally spaced on that request. He figured faking an ID was child's play. Suddenly he scanned the text and froze. These were the real names of his inner circle. Alan said they needed a surname for the paperwork, so he used the prince's old title. It didn't look like he just picked these kids up off the street. Callian paused, then smiled warmly, thanking his teacher. This wasn't a forgery. It was legit citizenship. They were officially commoners living on his estate. Documented from day one, he'd protected them like his own subjects. Alan noted that Romaine handled the heavy lifting. Suddenly, the protagonist shot the teacher a questioning look. Alan asked again, how did it feel to be the king's golden child? Callian asked if the rumors were really popping off like that. Alan confirmed he'd caused such a massive scene in front of the nobles, that the gossip was unstoppable. Callian shrugged. How was he supposed to feel? This was a victory lap he intended to milk for all it was worth. Later, he was chilling on the sofa in his room, mulling over the situation. He turned to Ian, asking him to trash the banana peel. The servant walked up and said his name with a heavy tone. Callian blinked. What was wrong? Ian had news. He was resigning. Immediately. The protagonist was stunned, his jaw practically hitting the floor. Ian's mind flashed back to his childhood, rushing through the hallways of his old home, heart racing. It was the room on the far right second floor. He remembered hiding behind a massive pillar and yelling, "Found you." He was standing next to his brother, who was lying there wrapped in bandages. He had been so happy just to say hello, but in that room a heavy guilt crushed him. His brother had asked if he'd heard the cicadas singing today. Ian had answered with confidence, yeah, they're black, ugly, and super loud. You only see them in summer. They make this weird buzzing noise and have these goofy little wings. The dread. It's radiating straight from the valley. His brother confirmed the vibes were off, and Ian was like, yeah, totally twisted. You want to see him? Ian offered to catch a few creepy crawlies, but his brother shut that down fast. Hard pass. Pure nightmare fuel. He'd rather zone out to his violin than face that reality. Meanwhile, his condition was tanking daily. Then he eavesdropped on his dad and the subordinate. They brought up Lord Manicel's son, some medical prodigy they could hit up again. But wasn't the real issue buried deeper? How do you even ask for that? Sleeman looked down defeated. This isn't exactly a walk in the park for me either. There had to be a loophole. Back then, he didn't realize if you can't deliver the goods, don't make the offer. Boom. Reality check. His brother snatched him by the shoulders, paralyzed by the words, screaming his name. Don't you dare look away. Keep your eyes on me. Never forget. I'm dying. Flashback to the horror show, the mansion engulfed in flames. Panic everywhere. Get out, save Mr. Ian, run before we all burn. And right there, one day before his 15th birthday, his brother decided to punch his own ticket. Game over. Seasons blurred. Summer, autumn, winter. Just static noise and the endless buzzing of cicadas. He went full shut-in mode until his dad snapped, physically dragging him out of his self-imposed prison. Dad scooped him up and carried him out. Then Ian points at some kid. Who's that? Dad turns. That's the third prince. Their eyes locked. And click. Destiny. He decided to serve him right then. But now, he's handing in his resignation. Callian is absolutely shook. Panic sets in. Wait, what are you saying? Ian drops the truth. I was your right hand, but I was clueless, especially about what happened to you. I mean, he was the one who personally handled the poison. The main character stood tall, eyes wide in shock. Ian spiraled. It's on me. My fault. I ignored every red flag. I wasn't there when it went down. I was blind to the obvious. You could have died and I was useless. Suddenly he sees his dead brother's silhouette again. Don't forget. I'm dying. Kalian screams his name, demanding attention. Ian breaks down, sobbing uncontrollably, and looks up at the MC. Tell me right now, who is standing in front of me? Silence. He stares into Ian's teary eyes. I am Prince Kalian. He steps closer, hand on his chest. Feel that I'm not dead. That moment he woke up in that strange place. He realized Ian was the constant. He survived the universe's sick trials because of him. You didn't bail on me. That's why I'm breathing. Ian hears this, and the waterworks get intense. Kalian continues, I feel like I still don't know the real you, but I know one thing. I'm protecting you. Always. Is this real? Ian steps back in disbelief. Then he crashes. Face red with grief, he drops to his knees, sobbing his heart out. The MC asks, why the tears? Stop crying. Stand up. But Ian's mind is made up. I'm not going home. Kalian reaches out. Hold on. Ian thinks home is gone forever. Because I found someone who actually needs me. They grip hands, holding tight. A beat passes. Then Ian declares, I'm gonna kill everyone who did this to you. Kalian turns bewildered. Ian stares back, looking deadly serious while collecting. Banana peels Kalian. What? You planning revenge, Ian? Nothing's impossible. They put me through hell. Kalian warns him, stop. Elves can't interfere, or you'll start a literal war. Ian snaps, screaming, screw the war, I don't care about my blood, I am not a Sleeman anymore. Kalian freezes. Wait, elves, you knew about that. The MC spreads his hands, smirking, refusing to answer. Ian is losing it. When did you find out? Kalian shrugs. It just kinda happened. Ian, how? Kalian grins. Once you toss those peels, make me some coffee. The MC wonders, is Ian gonna grow taller than me then? Boom. The coffee leaves Kalian totally stunned. Kalian stared blankly, his mind racing to catch up. A perfect copy of himself stepped out of the void, flashing a gentle, knowing smile. The double ghosted right through him. Kalian spun around, watching his mirror image drift away before turning back with one last grin. Kalian stood there, totally shook. He clenched his fist, holding it up to check if this was real. Staring at his own hand in disbelief, he snapped his gaze back to the other Kalian. But the figure started glitching, dissolving into mist. Kalian was paralyzed, watching the smile fade as his double evaporated, blasting him with a blinding flash of mana. Kalian jolted awake in his bed. Just a dream. He checked his hands solid and swung his legs out of bed. The window was thrown open, a cool breeze rolling in. The original soul was gone, completely erased. He wandered out into the garden, plucking a flower from the stem. Yeah. You'd think the kid would hesitate after finally getting everything he wanted. But nope, he dipped immediately, gone without a trace. Kalian looked up at the sky, picturing the boy's face one last time. That's life. It gave him exactly what he craved. Kalian traced a smiley face in the air. Rest easy, kid. He closed his eyes, letting the words hang in the silence. If this royal life was a cage for that child, Kalian actually envied his total freedom now. Alan tried to chime in, but Kalian cut him off. He wasn't going to play dumb. He had a massive checklist to clear before any of that could happen, and he needed a favor. Spinning around, eyes locked, he dropped the truth he intended to live this second life the right way. With that vow, he let the flower drift down the stream. Cut to political cleanup, Pavel's nightly corps got dismantled and sent back to Marquis Brisson in a box. Romain shut down the gossip mill, warning everyone not to trust baseless rumors about the royals. Then Alan dropped the mic he was forming an order of mages. Fast forward 3 months and our protagonist finally beat the skinny allegations. His fit was getting snug, way too snug. Jan panicked, telling Merlin they needed to get Silike on the line, because the prince needed major tailoring. Kalian swept his hair back, and Jan couldn't help but point out that his clothes were bursting at the seams. But honestly, the glow-up was real. Later, King Romain greeted him, noting the transformation. You've filled out, he said. Bigger than plants now. You look healthy. Solid. Kalian nodded. Yeah, grew a bit. As they sat for dinner, the topic shifted. Is everything set for Rosalita? All systems were go for her upcoming birthday bash. Then Alan announced he had a special staffing update, arranging a meet and greet for the prince. This mage will be your escort to Rosalita's party. Huge honor, prince. Name's Arsene Hertz. Kalian froze. His blood ran cold. He stared at the man, unable to squeeze out a single word. Romain hyped the guy up, saying he was prime material for the mage order and they'd have plenty of time to bond. On the road, Arsene flashed a charming smile, but Kalian gave him the cold shoulder, turning away. Just talent, he muttered. Suddenly, Kalian grabbed his chest, forcing a smile. Wow, unexpected. What a birthday gift. He pivoted instantly. So when does this mage order go live? Alan laughed. Not anytime soon, Prince. We don't even have a name yet. Zero staff. Nothing is approved. It was bare bones, just the start. Arsène beamed at the protagonist, but Callian stared back with pure, unadulterated venom. Alan kept the ball rolling. Since they're mages, why doesn't His Majesty pick the name? Romain paused, scratching his chin. You could see the gears turning. He actually had an idea. He scratched his knee casually. Balkan. We'll call it Balkan. Callian smirked and looked away. Alan grinned. I knew you were waiting for that. If he hadn't served that up on a platter, he would have been in hot water. Romain turned beet red, yelling, hey, I was the one who brought it up first. Callian ignored the banter and turned to Mr. Arsène. So what's your take on the name? Arsène looked confused. Pardon, the protagonist pressed him. Do you like it? Does it ring a bell? Alan pretended to sip his tea, but he was internally screaming. He was stunned. Arsène hesitated, then placed a hand over his heart. I think it's a magnificent name. Callian's smile didn't reach his eyes. Understood. Later, once Alan and Callian were alone outside, they huddled under a silence barrier to unpack that interaction. Alan was reeling. You guys have history. Did you want him to do something? Callian shook his head. No need. But then he dropped the bomb. Arsène is the one who killed me. Alan froze. Sure, Arsène was different in this timeline and things were shifting, so the future wasn't set in stone. But before Alan could spiral, he asked for clarification. Callian admitted he was rattled, his expression twisting into pure rage, as he visualized Arsène's face. Suddenly, a knock at the door. A servant stepped in. Greetings, Third Prince. Callian flashed a charming grin, noting it had been a hot minute since their last meeting. He gestured for Baron Melfier to get comfortable. Sorry for dropping in unannounced and incognito, he smoothed over. It's tricky, discussing sensitive business in the open. Melfier, sweating bullets, stammered that the honor was entirely his. Our protagonist knew exactly what he was doing. Prince Callian had avoided the nobility until now, so sneaking out to meet a baron, it was a calculated move to grab attention. The agenda was crystal clear. Enough small talk. Callian cut straight to the chase. I'm here to collect on that life debt. What was the Barons Guild peddling these days? Melfier looked like a deer in headlights, completely tongue-tied. Finally, he managed to stutter. We've moved into diamonds and luxury fabrics. Secured some solid contracts with the imperial family too. But the look in the prince's eyes said boring. Melfier's palms were slick with sweat. Though, we don't have a deal with you yet, Your Highness. Callian smirked, leaning in. Tell me, Baron, could you handle an operation bigger than a simple trade union? Melfier swallowed hard. With the right manpower and funding. Absolutely. Callian nodded. We have the people. We have the gold. But we also have the Breezen family in the way. The mention of that powerful house made Melfier freeze, his jaw practically hitting the floor. He dared to whisper, Wait, is Your Highness involved in this scheme too? The air in the room grew heavy, until Callian threw his head back and burst into laughter. What a silly question. Of course I'm involved. Melfier's mind raced. Infinite budget, an army of staff, and the prince tackling the Breezen faction. That changed everything. We're building an order of mages. Callian dropped the bomb. Resources aren't the issue, leadership is. I need a manager. Melfier blinked, still reeling. Is this the price for my life? The prince's smile didn't waver, as he replied, Oh, I've already collected that. The implication sent a shiver down Melfier's spine. Realizing there was no backing out, the Baron placed a hand over his heart. Then, I serve you body and soul. Checkmate. Callian knew his gamble paid off. The coming-of-age ceremony at 15, usually a death sentence in the original timeline, was now the turning point. He had rewritten his destiny. He had allies he could actually trust. All that was left was the oath to Cispanian at Rosalita. Why was everything shifting? Time skipped forward, and our MC stepped into the massive palace hall, greeted by a deafening roar from the crowd. Long live Prince Callian. It was his birthday, and the people were eating it up. Dressed to kill in royal finery, he faced the masses with a practiced smile. The stage was set. Later in a quiet corridor, Prince Plant stood alone, lost in his own dark thoughts. Callian strolled up, throwing out a casual, Hey brother, long time no see. Plants didn't even twitch. Callian shrugged and kept walking. Suddenly, Plant's voice cut through the silence. Hey, Blood Eyes. Callian stopped dead, turning slowly. Don't call me that. My name is Callian. Plant scoffed, eyes narrowing. Callian, you're no Callian. The accusation hit our protagonist like a truck. Plants wasn't done. You ride like a pro. You handle a sword like a veteran. And your eyes, they've turned cruel. You don't even know who you are anymore, do you? He fired the question like a weapon. Callian frowned, staring straight ahead, a spike of fear in his chest. He couldn't slip up now. He had to remember, he wasn't the fallen prince of Secretia, and he wasn't the mad king who burned his own world. The truth would come out with Cispanian's will soon enough. He forced his hand to unclench, plastering on a confused smile. I have zero clue what you're rambling about. He played the airhead perfectly. Plants glared, annoyed by the nonchalance, but let it go. Later, Alan gave his report. Prince Plants is sharp. He's definitely noticed the shift in your vibe. He plays the outcast role well, but he's watching everything. It's subtle, but dangerous. Callian turned to the mage. You think his attitude is just an act? Alan nodded grimly. 100%. That's why I'm not surprised he's suspicious. Callian paused, processing the intel. Got it. I was so focused on the small stuff, I missed the threat right in front of me. I didn't think he'd catch on. Alan probed deeper. What did you expect? You share a name, but you chose to be Callian, didn't you? Silence hung between them. I did, Callian admitted softly. Alan studied him. Giving up a name is one thing, but erasing your entire identity, that's a heavy toll. Suddenly, the mage tossed a shimmering object to him. Here, catch. Callian snatched the ring out of the air, inspecting the craftsmanship. Use that, Alan instructed, when you need an old man's brain to untangle a mess. Callian sensed the mana pulsing from it. It's enchanted, Alan smirked. Guilty. Just don't try using it inside the castle. Sispanian's magic blocks everything in there. Beyond the palace walls, he was just one call away, always picking up on the first ring. Callian silently thanked him for that unwavering loyalty. Having the master in his corner was a total game changer. He was the one guy who promised Callian a life free of worries. His inner circle was ride or die. Images of Ian, Hina, and Kiri flashed through his mind. His squad was solid. Callian let a smirk play on his lips. We'll see about that. Moments later, Commander Duran rolled up, bowing with heavy respect. My prince, I live to serve. His unit was ready to escort Callian straight to Sispanian's sacred chambers. The protagonist noted the vibe classic Siegfried Knight's energy. The sheer prestige of the name carried serious weight, maybe a little too much weight. It clicked. These were the guys treating their own young lord like a glorified intern. Speaking of the young lord, Ian stepped up, signaling it was go time. Need anything else before we roll out? Callian pivoted, a mischievous idea lighting up. He clamped a hand on Ian's shoulder. Actually, yeah. Fetch me a drink. The knight's jaws hit the floor. Ian didn't blink. Water. Or maybe some warm tea to settle the nerves. Callian was absolutely loving the drama. Ian chirped, be right back, leaving Callian to mutter, good boy. He scanned the knights, pure horror painted on their faces. Alan watched the scene, practically asking, are you for real right now? Making enemies. Piece of cake. But this was his one shot to inherit the will of Sigmund and Sispanian. Time passed, and the palace grounds swarmed with a roaring crowd, hyping up the atmosphere. The squad rolled in arson, taking point Ian and Kiri close behind. Franz was lurking nearby, watching the whole spectacle from the shadows. Meanwhile, Celeste nursed a mug of tea solo, lost in deep thought. Callian handled his mount like a pro, pulling up next to a smiling Alan. The Rosalita had officially begun. The prince's coming of age. Considering Callian barely scraped by the last disaster, Alan couldn't help but stress out. Should he have tagged along? Alan mused that the future was a blur. But then he dropped a truth bomb. You're worrying about the wrong guy. Alan was in way deeper trouble inside these walls than the prince would ever be out there. King Ramon set his tea down with a clatter. You haven't changed a bit, have you? Spoiler alert, that wasn't praise. Aren't you the one losing sleep over him? Alan grinned, calling out the overprotective dad vibes. It definitely struck a nerve. Hard to believe this was the same guy who used to act so cold. Ramon shot back that every word was the gospel truth. The king admitted it. Alan hit the nail right on the head. Later, Callian checked his comms ring. Looks like the signal was tracing back to the palace. Dead silence. Why isn't he picking up? Ian pressed. Callian shrugged, mentioning a rumor he'd caught wind of. The Tensile Empire delegates had just touched down. That explained the chaos at court. Ian offered to chat, trying to keep the mood up. Callian deadpanned, I'm already bored of you. I've been staring at your face for days. The knights glared, barely hiding their hatred for the prince. Ian's voice trembled, putting on an Oscar-worthy performance of trying his best while issuing orders to the crew. This is a prince matter. Lord Alan had spread the word. His Highness had zero magical potential. Just basic sword skills. Basically, a delicate flower who couldn't hurt a fly. Handle him with extreme care. Got it. The knights stood there, absolutely floored by the instructions. Pure disgust washed over them. Their young master, the Siegfried heir, gave up everything for this weakling. Was this a nightmare? They'd hit Latran in a few hours. Callian, eavesdropping on the vibe, went deep into thought. Ian suggested a pit stop, but Callian held up a hand. Wait. Suddenly, steel-flashed knights drew their blades. Callian scanned the perimeter. Whatever was coming, zero threat level. It looked more like snap. A hand burst out of the bushes before he could finish the thought. A girl stumbled out, screaming her lungs out for help. Callian clocked the ears immediately. Wait, an elf. I'm Shay, she gasped. Everyone started murmuring, trying to figure out the situation. I'm starving, Shay blurted out. Looking for a snack, no Callian realized she was just hiding. You being here is actually perfect, Callian noted. Shay stammered, I should have said something sooner, and bowed her head in apology to Callian. Her speech pattern was totally off-kilter, ringing massive alarm bells. Duran, looking completely lost, asked the boss what the play was here. Our MC didn't hesitate, priorities first. Get some food in her, he ordered. She looks like she's running on empty. But then Kalian froze. His eyes narrowed as he signaled everyone to halt. She really should have mentioned she brought a tail. A rider emerged from the shadows, blocking their path. Kiri instantly threw a cloak over the girl, shielding her from view, while Kalian commanded the squad to stay frosty. Identify yourself, Duran barked. The stranger shrugged, claiming he was just a simple guy, hunting down a sticky-fingered thief. You boys happen to see a weird kid running loose. Duran didn't blink. No brats out here, pal. Keep moving. Kyrie tensed up, hand hovering over his hilt, but the stranger threw his hands up. Whoa, relax. I ain't looking to brawl with knights today. Kalian remained on high alert, analyzing every micro-expression. The rider insisted he just wanted what was his, and begged for just a minute of their time. Duran tried to stonewall him again, but Kalian cut in, voice sharp. Who exactly? Are you hunting? The man's grin dropped. The little elf. The air turned ice cold as Kalian pressed him. Is this the prize you're after? He gestured to Shay. The girl spun around, eyes wide with pure terror, staring into the abyss. The rider trotted past Kalian, thinking he'd won. But the prince leaned in, voice barely a whisper. Don't turn around. Those shadows in the trees. Are they your buddies? Because you need better friends. Hate to break it to you, but they're here to wipe out the kid and you. The guy looked like he'd been slapped. Kalian kept the pressure on. The second they spot the girl, it's lights out. The rider froze, catching a glint of metal in the tree line. And then chaos erupted. A rain of arrows screamed through the air, aimed straight at the rider's skull, but our MC was faster, deflecting the volley with insane precision. Eyes forward, Kalian roared, saving the ungrateful thug. The knights went into full panic mode. Ambush. Protect the prince at all costs. Boom, Arson snapped his fingers, enveloping the prince in a shimmering magic barrier. Safe inside the bubble, Duran spotted a flash of light, and screamed for the squad to form up, warning them to stay out of the deep woods. Suddenly, the arrow storm ceased. Looks like the assassins cut and ran. The rider frowned, scanning the perimeter while Arson offered to guard the kid, so the others could back up the prince. Kyrie rushed over to check on Kalian, but the danger wasn't over. Kalian sensed a killing intent from behind. An assassin lunged, ready to end him. A warning shout rang out, as the knights watched in horror, but the prince was too slick. He parried the strike instantly. The assassin froze, cold sweat dripping down his face as he realized he messed with the wrong royal. Kalian didn't hesitate. He blasted the guy in the chest with a surge of magic. The assassin crumpled, hitting the dirt hard, wailing in agony as crimson stained the grass. The knight's jaws hit the floor. What was that? Did the prince just use magic? Is his highness a sorcerer now? Ian lost his mind, screaming, Your Highness, completely blindsided by this power reveal. He wouldn't stop yelling, acting like the prince was possessed. Honestly, it was a miracle Ian didn't have a heart attack right there. Why did he charge in like a maniac? He had a whole army behind him. Everyone thought he only knew sword fighting 101 and baby-level magic. But here he was, diving headfirst into danger again. The knights couldn't make sense of the contradiction. Wasn't he supposed to be a fragile flower? Since when do flowers obliterate assassins? Meanwhile, Shay was cowering behind a tree, shaking like a leaf. Kalian walked up, pulled back her hood, and stared her down. We need to talk. She looked at him like he was an alien. Immediately she started babbling. It was all Luca. I don't know anything. Kalian raised an eyebrow. So you are a thief then? I don't know, she shrieked. Kalian pressed harder. What do you mean you don't know? That's literally what they accused you of. She denied it again, screaming she was innocent. Kalian rubbed his temples, totally confused. He pivoted to Arsene. Handle this. Arsene blinked. Say what Kalian told him to interrogate the elf because the kid was answering questions, before he even vocalized them. Weird right, Arsene flashed a charming smile. I'll do my best, he said, but then his voice dropped, trembling slightly as he promised to report back. Suddenly, Shay popped up behind him, rattling off answers at light speed. My mother tree named me. It means, spirit who rejoices in a horse. I live in the sunrise forest. And my name is Ciara's Tien Everha, or something complex like that. Kalian looked at her. And you have a friend. Luca, another elf. He swiped something from those bandits back there while fleeing. They split up, and she ran straight into Kalian's group. But seriously, how was she answering questions he hadn't even asked yet? I won't tell you that she snapped at a thought he just had. Kalian's eyes widened. Is that foresight? Well, that changes things. Arsene can take a break. Ian turned to the prince. So what's the plan for the girl? We drop her near the forest edge, Kalian decided. If we leave her here, those bandits will scoop her up in 5 seconds. It was on their way, regardless. Ian frowned. Are we investigating this? Kalian just sighed. We've got a long road ahead, Ian. Getting mixed up in this mess wasn't an option. They couldn't loiter. He needed to signal the nearest heavyweight immediately. Let the locals handle the cleanup. Ian confirmed they'd hit the Latran estate by nightfall. The lord there would get the full briefing. Jan stepped up, asking to speak freely. They'd tossed the place and found something sketchy. Kalian locked eyes with him. What is it? Jan handed over a small package. Kalyan cracked it open, staring at the contents. You sure this was in his stash? Positive, Jan confirmed. Kalyan's expression darkened. He didn't need a label. He'd survived this poison before. Where is he? Cut to Norton, bound to a tree, muttering to himself about what a pathetic excuse for a lord he was. But Kalyan saw something else, hidden depths. He walked up to the captive. You're right. Actually, you're nobler than you give yourself credit for. Time to get down to business. Kalyan flashed the cube in his hand. Do you have any clue what you're holding? Norton looked blank. Is it valuable? Norton stammered. He admitted he just grabbed a few as souvenirs. Kalyan sighed, genuinely confused. What is their endgame here? Norton shook his head, clueless. Kalyan pressed on. Do you even know who they are? Just masks, Norton muttered. That's all I saw. Kalyan pushed for more intel, but Norton snapped back. No. Kalyan paused, intrigued. He sat on the ground, eye level with the prisoner. Okay, forget them. You clearly don't care about the bad guys. So what do you want? Kalyan made the offer. Help me and I fix your problem. I'm the one guy you can trust to get it done. As promised, Kalyan wasn't like the other elites. But Norton hesitated. Could he bank on that? Did this guy actually have the muscle to deliver? Suddenly, Norton froze. The dam broke. My wife, he blurted out. She's in Hanson Village. Leverage acquired. Kalyan didn't blink. Done. I'll make sure she has a security detail. Now tell me what they were after. Norton spilled everything. They were hunting a sphere, tiny fingernail-sized. No other details. But the rumor was that only Tensel priests could identify it. Kalyan's mind raced. Why would they need that? A divine artifact. It made sense. Regular villagers could use those things as batteries to channel magic without divine power. That's exactly why the Tensel Shrine scours the continent, hoarding them. If an artifact was stolen, then sending a hunter squad to retrieve it is standard procedure. But one piece of the puzzle didn't fit. The poison. That specific toxin in the cubes is standard issue for secretion spies when a mission goes south. He went straight to the White Hawk because that poison is their signature. Norton added one last detail. He didn't know the goons, but they used a weird code name for their boss. Kalyan leaned in. What name? Blue Warbler. The blood drained from Kalyan's face. He clutched his forehead. Are you serious? That was one of his father's spies. A bird usually kept in a cage. What was a royal asset doing out here in the mud? The sky opened up. A heavy downpour forced them to take shelter at the Latran estate earlier than planned. At first it felt like luck. Then Hale Latran slammed his wineglass down, shouting with intoxicated glee. Finally, you're in my home. The guy was vibrating with excitement. This rain is a sign heaven wants me to serve you. Kalyan instantly hated the guy's vibe. Too much noise. He recalled Ian's dossier on Count Hale, one of the gift senders. Kalyan frowned. I saw his name on the list. Didn't we reject his tribute? Ian nodded. Correct. Hale was a political weather vane back to Prince Randall, then flipped to Prince Franz 6 years ago after the Desert War. A classic hypocrite trying to jump on the winning bandwagon. Now he was trying to claw his way into Kalyan's favor. Hale kept screaming about holding his breath for his highness, claiming the news of Kalyan's arrival haunted his dreams. It was the same desperate energy he used to court Prince Franz last year. A total clout chaser. You could tell everything by how he treated his staff. They looked miserable. Malson Kefish, the butler, stood there looking like he wanted to die of shame. Suddenly, Arsène cut through the tension. Sorry to interrupt. He moved smooth as a shadow, leaning in to whisper directly into Kalyan's ear. We caught a pigeon. Count Hale had tried to sneak a message out to the Blue Warbler, giving up his location. Who sends a bird in a storm? Someone desperate. This guy was a pro at being shady. Hale demanded more booze, claiming the weather made him thirsty. He'd been itching to ask a question. Kalyan beat him to it. By the way, do you know what the Tensel priests are doing in this area? Crash. Hale dropped the bottle. Oops, too much wine, he stammered, sweating. Wait, where are they staying? Tensel. Those charlatans. Hale's voice pitched up. Kalyan and Arsène exchanged a look. He was trying too hard. Why would those shameless frauds come to a backwater like this? Hale shouted, aggressively defensive. You must be mistaken. Kalyan's patience finally snapped. He dropped the pleasantries and barked Hale's name, but the guy was too busy screaming about how they were cold-blooded villains to notice. Hale was mid-rant about everyone being rotten to the core and ordering an encirclement when thump he hit the floor before he could even finish his sentence. Lights out. Kalyan literally just snapped his fingers and commanded him to snooze. Instant shutdown. Zero manners, my dear Count. Honestly, it's kind of offensive. With that headache handled, the squad got back on the road. Duran pulled up next to Lord Kalyan while the prince activated his comms ring. Alan picked up, asking if our boy had gotten dragged into some messy situation. You know the vibe, stolen artifacts, secretion spies, totally avoidable danger. Kalyan was like, yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And hey, I'm still breathing. Alan basically shrugged and said, cool, do whatever you want. Let's see how much chaos ensues. The old master was ready to stop babysitting his apprentice and retire to the warm south. But our MC told him to chill. He was stressing over nothing. Because if the blue singer was actually who he suspected, he was in zero danger. Like, totally safe. Alan sighed. You know way too many people, kid. Callian dropped some lore in her past life. The blue singer had a perfect record, never failed a single mission. She definitely clocked him as Prince Kyrus the second they made eye contact. But did that stop her from stepping out of the shadows? Nope. She opened fire, but the vibe was off. There was a hidden agenda. That's where the master comes in. Callian needed the coordinates on this priest stat. Cut to a scene straight out of a horror movie, blood everywhere, bodies dropping. The big question was, what is the blue singer actually chasing? Just for trying to meet the priest, these guys got deleted by a mysterious blue-haired assassin. Fast forward a bit. We're in a chill cafe, staff minding their own business when bam, Callian kicked the door open. Talk about a main character entrance. He tossed out a casual greeting and told everyone to just ignore the crowd outside. They're with me, no biggie. The girl hit him with a relax. She wasn't about to take out random civilians who weren't part of the game. Callian pressed her. For real. He was pretty sure she recognized him and had ordered her squad to jump his crew. She admitted she knew exactly who he was, which is why she told her goons not to do anything stupid. Suddenly, Callian spotted one of the boys. The kid was slumped over the table out cold. Everyone around looked sick. The girl sighed. Looks like her warnings had the exact opposite effect. Callian raised an eyebrow. So did you decide to step in and handle this mess yourself? Looks that way, she shrugged. But seeing Callian's menacing aura flare up, Layla's hand instantly went for her dagger. Fight or flight mode engaged. I take it you're not going to make this easy for me, she said, tense. Callian just smirked. Is the elf you were chasing dead? He asked. She shook her head. Guy vanished into the woods. If she knew it would be this messy, she never would have chased him. And honestly, this meet and greet hadn't exactly been a 5-star experience. But hey, nobody died, so she suggested they just part ways peacefully. The kid was safe, she promised. She swore on it. Callian wasn't buying the easy exit though. You really think I trekked all the way out here, just to leave empty-handed? He wasn't moving until he got answers. Specifically, why did she need divine artifacts? She was no priestess, so she couldn't even use them. Catching her reflection in Callian's glass, she frowned, clearly getting triggered. She snatched the drink right out of his hand. That cost me a fortune, thanks. Callian ignored the attitude. So, you're a supplier. Layla rolled her eyes. Call it a side hustle. People in my line of work don't exactly get a steady paycheck. Callian studied her. Does your buyer live in Latron? It was the only logic that tracked. Why operate in this tiny village when she could easily find buyers among the high-rolling Kyrus priests? This client pays a fair price, Layla said. Generous people are rare these days. Callian realized they hadn't been working together long. Only one thing could hook a secretion spy like that. The tea was hot. The blue singer was trading divine artifacts in exchange for Kyrus's state secrets. She grabbed a wine bottle, but Callian interrupted. He had one more burning question. Meanwhile, back at the castle, Alan rolled up on the king. King Lemaine was confused. You showed up this late just to ask a question, trying to beat the gossip mill. Do you get a kick out of embarrassing your king? Alan shot back. Please, your majesty, is usually awake at this hour anyway. Plus, you have the info I need, and I'm not about wasting time. Let's cut to the chase. How many Tencel priests are currently in Kyrus, and where are they hiding? Lemaine squinted. You know something, or just being nosy? Doesn't matter. I know you've heard about the Tencel envoys. Lemaine caved. There are currently 14 of them living in Kyrus. They're recalling everyone except one guy staying at court, and they made one thing crystal clear. Any request for backup priests denied, which is hilarious irony because they were the ones who kicked their envoys out. They claimed it was for sacred rituals, but now that they're dragging them back, it looks a lot more like forced labor. Looks like they're dealing with a total internal meltdown. From where he's standing, it screams desperation, like they're grabbing anyone with a pulse, trying to bury the panic before the public catches wind. So how did His Majesty take the news? The king just shrugged it off, saying he gave them the green light to take the priests back. Kyrus doesn't babysit the priesthood. Sure, why the sudden interest? Alan reported that. Prince Callian was digging for their location. Romaine shot him a look that said really, and Alan doubled down. Was there a problem? He couldn't figure out why the king was grilling him on something so basic. Did Romaine assume Callian was already in the loop? That's exactly why Callian bolted for Latran. Meanwhile, the scene cuts to him with Ella pressing her on whether Count Hale was still on her payroll. He watched her like a hawk. Ella coolly poured herself a glass of wine, brought it to her lips for a dramatic pause, and dropped the bomb that his curiosity was wasted energy. Right then, Alan realized they'd been played. That snake had them fooled. He must have been harboring a priest this whole time, trading state secrets to Silica's spies in exchange for holy artifacts. Callian confirmed the theory dead on. They needed to hightail it back to the palace, but Alan hesitated, asking, why the rush back to the castle? Was something going down? Callian admitted the situation was getting messy, figuring since the Count had seemingly blacked out from booze after naming his price at dinner, he'd used magic to knock him out cold. But now the paranoia was setting in. What if the drunk act was fake? Cut to the palace. Ian is absolutely losing it, screaming, the audacity. He's shouting, asking how many times he has to spell it out. The prince is on an evening walk. Absolute lockdown. 0 visitors. Chetish tried to smooth it over, saying it'd be quick. The count just wanted to apologize for his messy behavior at dinner. And if Ian would just leak the prince's location, they could squash the beef right now. Ian wasn't buying it. He asked if they were serious, calling that lame excuse an apology. Then he snapped, asking, since when it was standard protocol for a servant to interrogate royalty about their whereabouts. Chetish froze, voice trembling as he tried to backpedal, claiming it wasn't like that. Ian sensed the vibes were off, and started low-key panicking about where Kalian had vanished to. Then Chetish pushed his luck, asking for an ETA on the prince's return. Ian was officially done with this stubborn old guy and unleashed his fury. How was he supposed to know that? He told him to get lost and go back to his room. Where was the respect? Chetish figured he could at least get a ballpark time, when suddenly Kalian burst out of his room, acting totally annoyed that he couldn't get 5 minutes of peace. It was the last thing anyone expected, and Ian and Chetish looked like they'd seen a ghost. Chetish's jaw hit the floor in pure terror, while Kalian scoffed, calling him an absolute clown. All Ian had to do was kick the guy out. Was that rocket science? Ian, totally confused, but rolling with it, apologized with a subtle wink at Kalian, claiming the gentleman refused to leave, but he'd handle the trash now. Kalian slammed the door shut for dramatic effect, and Chetish realized he was in deep trouble. He started begging for mercy. Completely clueless that the prince wasn't resting, he was about to bolt again. Safely behind the door, Kalian was gasping for air, reeling from the adrenaline dump. He realized he'd just channeled his inner plant's total jerk mode, and honestly, it felt gross. Ian slipped into the room, reporting that Kalian was back way earlier than expected via the window, of all places. Ian demanded the tea, but Kalian said it was a long story, pivoting to ask if any shady characters had popped up while he was MIA. Ian deadpanned that it was just the butler, noting that suspicious people usually sneak in through windows exactly like Kalian just did. 3rd floor no less. Kalian chuckled, admitting he'd keep that pro tip in mind. Then he asked why Ian was raging outside. He couldn't recall Ian ever snapping like that inside the palace walls. Ian replied that it was because the guy wouldn't listen. He did exactly what Kalian asked, told the butler he was out for a stroll, but the guy kept pressing for an exact timestamp of his return. Kalian paused. Was that for real? Ian confirmed the guy wouldn't quit. He seemed way more obsessed with the when than the where. Kalian contacted his mentor, realizing the count was getting paranoid that Kalian was sniffing around his shady business. So the hunch was right. The guy was stone cold sober when he staged that scene. Alan asked. Then what was the point of the performance? The protagonist explained it was a classic decoy move to distract them from his deal with Ella, which was scheduled for tonight. That also explained why she showed up in the first place. The wine was just a prop to give the count a solid alibi, to slip away like a ghost. But his master plan face-planted when Kalian put him to sleep with that spell. Once he woke up and realized Kalian had left the palace, he sent his butler to fact-check the situation. Alan admitted the logic held up, but the million-dollar question remained. Why was he so thirsty for those divine artifacts? The protagonist figured it was the ultimate bribe to win over the sacred kingdom of Tencel, specifically the homeland of Randall's mother. Bottom line, the Count is playing a dangerous double game. He is cozying up to the Randall faction while secretly pulling strings with the Blanche crew. He is basically acting like a double agent, showering the opposition with gifts and leaking high-level state secrets. We are talking curious intel handed straight to Sacristia spies. It is like destiny dragged the protagonist here on purpose, just to make sure he stumbled upon the smoking gun. The trail from the guy he was hunting led straight to Ella, and she spilled the tea. Hale is smuggling divine artifacts to the Sacred Kingdom, trying to buy his way into Randall's good graces. Is this just a fluke? No way. The storm outside is trapping everyone here for another day, so since he is stuck, he decides to burn this mole's operation to the ground. Cut to Hale, who is throwing a massive temper tantrum and smashing plates, screaming about that arrogant punk. He realizes he messed up big time by sending those gifts back. He knows he got hit with a hex. That wasn't a nap. That was a magical coma. His entire master plan is crumbling because of this one idiot. He hates the guy's smug attitude, thinking he is invincible, just because the Archmage has his back. In Hale's eyes, he is just a freak who doesn't belong anywhere near the prince or Celine. And that useless woman, she should have taken him out before this chaos started. He blew a literal fortune trying to impress the Marquise of Bryson, and now his reputation with the nobility is about to tank. He was supposed to get prime real estate near the capital, but the scandal involving Celine just nuked his future. Suddenly, Katish knocks and steps into the room. Hale demands an update. With venom in his voice, he asks, "Did you get a hold of our contact?" Katish hesitates, admitting they haven't heard back yet and might need to wait a bit longer. Bad move. Hale lashes out, smashing a glass right into his servant's face. The guy hits the floor, clutching his bleeding head. Hale shrieks, "Can you do anything right?" The rain is hammering down outside, which means the low-born trash is staying another night. Katish, still in pain, asks if they should delay the transaction. Hale screams at the top of his lungs. Do we have a choice? They can't run a black market deal with the prince and his squad sniffing around. He orders him to reschedule everything immediately. Then he notices the maid standing there like a statue. He snaps at her to get his outfit ready. He is plotting a comeback that will humiliate this bastard once and for all. Later at dinner, the prince is casually enjoying his steak, totally unbothered. Hale watches him gripping his wineglass until his knuckles turn white. He thinks, drop the act, kid. In Ceres, the title of count means power. The nobles will riot. If they find out magic was used to assault a high-ranking official, royal blood won't protect him from that fallout. He smirks. Imagining the prince begging for mercy on his knees, he decides to strike, saying, Your Highness owes me an apology for last night's stunt. The prince glances up, chews his food, and casually says, No problem. Hale presses, if I may ask. Was that a spell? Before he can even finish the accusation, the prince interrupts, admitting that yeah, he put him to sleep because he was acting like a lunatic. Hale's jaw drops. Excuse me. The prince waves a hand, dismissively saying it was just a long day and they should move on. Then he gaslights him perfectly. You are a provincial lord. I assume this is your first time hosting royalty, right? He smiles, hand on his heart, and adds, You just got a little overexcited. Hale forces a smile through gritted teeth. Right, overexcited. A spell. Seriously, Hale thinks furious. He tricked me. Now I look like the unstable one. Then the prince asks, By the way, I am exhausted from dealing with that ambush. Hale freezes. Ambush. Is he talking about that dying witness they dragged in earlier? The prince nods. Yep. He gave us some very juicy info before checking out. Hale starts sweating. He needs to know what the guy said. The prince leans back, crosses his arms, and casually drops a codename, a specific bird species. Hale does a literal spit take, spraying wine everywhere. Malcolm panics. My lord, your suit. He offers a handkerchief, but Hale shoves him away, roaring, Get out of my face. We are having a conversation here, the prince smirks and says, Clearly we need to discuss the details, but I am very interested in hearing what exactly is going on in your territory. Hale jumps up, puts on his best fake loyal face, and declares that he will do whatever it takes to assist his highness, and he would never let anything bad happen on his watch. Internally, he is screaming, I am not letting this guy snoop around. He vows to dig up dirt and find the prince's weak spot. Suddenly, Jiran steps up to the prince and asks for permission to make a report. Hale shot him a glare, seething. Looking at the guy who wrecked his little show made his skin crawl. It was absolutely unbearable. How does he scrub this stain from his castle? Suddenly, the prince's voice sliced through the silence. You're one lucky bastard, Count. Hale blinked, completely caught off guard. Excuse me, the prince just smirked, eyes glinting. Looks like our silent friend finally found his voice. Down in the damp gloom of the dungeon, Hale stepped squarely into a muck-filled puddle. Gross. This filth was way below his pay grade. Did the prince really have to drag him down to this hellhole? The protagonist caught the look and thought, You bet I did. He knew exactly what was racing through Hale's mind. But it didn't matter. The prince had already put him in checkmate last night, and the guy didn't even know it yet. Inside the cell, Norton gripped the rusted bars, knuckles white. Him again. What the hell did you do to my wife? The main character just stood there, leaning casually against the cold stone wall opposite him. Crossing his arms, he kept his voice steady. Your family is untouched. I gave you my word, didn't I? He tilted his head. You remember that much, right? Norton frowned. Then why are you here? The answer was cold. Take a wild guess. You're staring down the barrel of an execution. Attempted regicide isn't a slap on the wrist. Once the investigation wraps, they'll haul you to Kiris for a public hanging. Norton's slumped eyes hitting the floor. The prince wasn't done. Even if you rot in here, without a trial, you're on borrowed time. That arm of yours, it's already starting to fester. Norton narrowed his eyes. What's your angle? The prince dropped the bomb. I can bust you out. Norton's jaw dropped. What did you just say? A fresh start, the prince continued. Far away from this estate, a quiet plot of land, and a humble cottage where you and your wife can grow old in peace. He stepped into the light, getting right in his face. But nothing comes free. You help me, and your only punishment will be losing that infected arm, which frankly is trying to kill you anyway. Norton stared at him, weighing his soul, then nodded. Deal. What do you need right now? We need intel, the prince said. That woman Blue Warbler, she's not just a pretty face, she's a spy. She came here to fence some stolen goods to her handler. Turns out they go way back. Malcolm's face went pale with shock. Norton threw a glance at the nervous subordinate. Makes you think, huh, doesn't it? Getting cozy with spies isn't exactly a good look. The prince smirked. Yeah, unless we're talking double agents. Otherwise, under Kairos law, that's straight-up treason. Wouldn't you agree, my dear Count? He flashed a predatory smile at Hale. The Count swallowed hard, choking out a weak yes. As Hale started a nervous manic laugh, the protagonist thought, he's desperate. Ideally, he'd crack and hand over the evidence on a silver platter. Suddenly, Malcolm hit the deck. He slammed his forehead against the stone, screaming, "Mercy, Your Highness, I beg you, I was just following orders. I'm not guilty, please," he sobbed for his life. The MC coolly took a seat on a makeshift throne across from him and thought, "I knew Hale would crumble, but I didn't expect the underling to fold this fast." He leaned forward. "You're a priest of Tencel, aren't you?" Malcolm looked shocked. "Only priests are authorized to handle sacred relics. Count Hale got the upper hand because he dug up dirt you wanted buried," Malcolm babbled. "The temple. They'll take my head if they find out I was selling the artifacts." The protagonist paused, stunned. "Selling them? I thought he was hoarding them to buy Tensel's trust." "Who was the buyer?" the prince demanded. Malcolm, terrified, spilled his guts. "I'll tell you everything. It was Queen Salisa's brother, Viscount Renan. He was funneling the relics to the temple to curry favor. Renan had been sucking up to Tensel this whole time. He'd stabbed the plant's faction in the back and jumped ship to Randall's side. To put it bluntly, this wasn't just betrayal. Queen Salise would burn the world down to get her son on the throne. Renan had sold out his entire clan. The prince realized the trap he set for a few rats had just snared a tiger. At that moment, he idly traced a smiley face on his knee. A voice broke his trance. "What's the play, Your Highness? This is going to blow up in our faces." "I need to talk to the king first," he decided. "That's our safest bet." "Should I draft a letter to Count Hale in your name, master?" After a beat, the MC settled into his chair and issued a different command to his subordinate. "Go down there and treat the prisoner's wound. It's nasty." He tossed a package to his aide. "If we don't treat him now, he loses the arm for sure. Give him this." Jan bowed deeply. "Consider it done, Your Highness." The prince then locked eyes with Kiri. "Head to the village, find his wife, and get her to a safe house. Now." As soon as Kiri grabbed the medicine, the door burst open. Little Sia came barreling into the room. "Hi," she chirped. "Hina came to clean up, so I came to see the bird." She skipped forward, babbling. "I know I shouldn't be here, but—" She dashed toward him. "I know you're not going to punish me anyway." The protagonist sighed. "I didn't even ask." He rubbed his temples, thinking, "This is Arson's headache, not mine." Then Sia pointed an excited finger at the cage. Jan leaned in and whispered, "So, what are we actually doing with the bird?" "Thinking about keeping it," he smirked. "Nah, just biding my time to return it to the rightful owner." The girls were obsessing over the bird, so the MC promised to cop Hina a fresh one later. Back at the crib, Hina froze, totally caught off guard. Our hero dropped the bomb. "This little bird is taking flight tonight," Hina whispered. "Whatever you say, Your Highness." She worried Merlin wouldn't vibe with a feathered guest in the room. The protagonist flashed a knowing grin. "Is that a fact? So you down to help me set it free after dinner?" Fast forward a bit, twilight hits and the sky goes pitch black. The protagonist lounged in his chair, eyes scanning the room. He slammed his book shut. Showtime. Earlier than expected. Isla materialized on the balcony, face hidden by a hood. "That letter hit different," she admitted. "Poetic. Deep. It basically said, 'Show up or the whole city finds out about that little dovecoat operation on Tynash Street.' I figured you had a solid reason for the blackmail," she said, finally pulling back her hood to reveal her face. The MC waved the notes in her face. "I need receipts, Isla. Proof that Hale is trafficking sacred relics. Give me that and your secret stays buried." They locked eyes, intense staring contest, before she looked down. "Is that a yes?" he pressed. "Unfortunately," she sighed. "I hate when things get messy." Reaching into her jacket, the vibe shifted instantly. She unleashed a barrage of projectiles. The protagonist's mind raced, magic missiles. Seriously, he barely had time to react. The blue warbler, he knew, was a sword specialist, not a mage throwing hidden weapons. Reflexes kicking in, he summoned a magic sigil. Right in front of him, manifesting a barrier to tank the incoming magic barrage. Boom! An explosion rocked the room. Outside, guards were freaking out. "Intruder, is the prince okay?" "Your Highness," the MC didn't hesitate. He magically slammed the door shut and roared, "Nobody comes in here." He glared at her through the smoke. "You actually trying to delete me? What else you got hiding up that sleeve?" Ayla charged, screaming, "Nothing else." Steel clashed against steel. She gritted her teeth, straining as the protagonist blocked her strike. He realized his blade was basic, trash, ordinary steel. If he pumped his aura into it, the thing would shatter instantly. He had to wrap this up fast, no aura allowed. Ayla clocked his hand movement, confusion flashing in her eyes as they broke the clinch. They clashed again, sparks flying. But the MC was on another level. He slapped the weapon right out of her grip. He thought, what was that about, not hiding anything? Suddenly, he spotted a tiny sphere pinched between her fingers. She flicked it at him. Too fast, he thought. Without aura armor, that's gonna leave a mark. He swung his sword, slicing the sphere cleanly in half mid-air. But the impact was too much, his blade cracked. And a shard of steel went flying. Isla gasped, clutching her injured hand. Impossible. A swordmaster. She nursed her wound, terrified. The MC pursed his lips, calculating his next move. "Isla," he said calmly. She shrieked, "How do you know my name?" Before she could react, he grabbed her face. She struggled, yelling, "Who do you think you are?" He ignored her, prying her jaw open. "Don't tell me you lost it, the poison tube." He checked her mouth. Aren't Secretia spies supposed to keep a cyanide pill tucked in there? 247. Time to spill the tea on everything you know. He released her. She rubbed her jaw, asking, if I talk, do I walk? He scoffed, annoyed. Secretia agents are famous for being tough, but you're folding like a lawn chair. He wondered if this version of her was a total reboot from the one he knew, or if her character arc had changed. She smirked, trying to regain control. Best if you let me go. That sword was garbage, she pointed out. But you used it like a pro. You're desperate to keep your true power level a secret, aren't you? Let me go or I walk out there and tell every knight in the castle what I just saw. The protagonist analyzed her. In the previous timeline, Blue Warbler was a loyal fanatic, a die-hard swordswoman who lived for the blade. This girl, totally different vibe. Not her. He grabbed her by the collar, getting in her face. Listen, if you value your skin and want to keep breathing, don't push your luck. He stepped closer, radiating menace, then abruptly let her go. Don't think you can play me. My secrets aren't some currency you can trade for your life. He closed his eyes, voice dropped dead serious. Tell me what you know and I'll save you the interrogation. She looked stunned. He added coldly, or someone else can ask the questions. Maybe the White Hawk. Cut to Hale, he was losing his mind. To hell with it, damn it all. Where did that brainless geezer Malcolm disappear to? He smashed his fist on the table, raging. First those useless mercenaries flop, and now this letter shows up. It read. The Count realized his only play was to craft a bulletproof defense. He'd already fed Her Majesty a personal sob story about his little encounter, and the tragic series of events that landed him in this mess. He told himself to chill. Everything was totally under control. Alan Hale's face twisted in rage. What exactly does he know? Did that snake actually uncover the artifact trafficking ring? Hands clasped behind his back, he paced aggressively. That vile serpent. Sending that letter meant the gig was up. He knew everything. He shouldn't even bother trying to scare him with cheap blackmail. To hell with him. There was no way he'd simp for some low-born trash cosplaying as a prince. He refused to whimper and fold like a kicked puppy. He wasn't going down without a fight. Slamming his hand onto the grandfather clock, he scoffed. Did they really think I didn't have a plan B? Click. A secret panel slid open right in front of him, exposing a vault stacked floor to ceiling with gold. He stepped inside bitter. All this hard work wasted because of some peasant. Whatever. He still had the crown jewel. He ripped open the nightstand and reached for the box inside. Flipping the lid, he gazed at the stash. With these divine artifacts, he could hit the reset button and build a new empire. He thought the deal with Renan was his golden ticket, but that guy turned out to be a massive liability. Slam. Suddenly invisible hands forced the box shut, crushing his fingers. A voice purred, "Much obliged, my lord, for doing the heavy lifting." The box was yanked from his grip into thin air. Alan spun around, eyes popping out of his head. What the invisibility spell? It's one of the prince's lackeys. Arsene shimmered into view, grinning like a shark. Mage of His Highness Prince, Kalyan, at your service. He brandished the box, mocking him. I can't thank you enough for hand-delivering such rock-solid evidence. Really don't sweat it, my lord. That vile snake and scum definitely appreciates your cooperation in wrapping up this investigation. Later, Arsene presented the haul. The hidden artifacts plus a receipt of every dirty transaction, with the Blue Warbler and the list of sold state secrets. The protagonist scanned the loot, snapped the lid shut, and smirked. Well, a cold smile played on his lips. Top-tier work. This saves us from a lot of messy cleanup. Suddenly, Ian burst into the room, panic written all over his face. Your Highness, we've got company outside. Through the window, the glitter of armor caught the light. A squad of knights was closing in. The protagonist peered out. Is that the Kyra, the king's personal death squad? They were supposed to be guarding the king in Syria. Why are the heavy hitters here? Meanwhile, Alan was losing his mind. They sent the elite guard to Latlan. He expected local beat cops when he messaged the king, not the Royal Special Forces. This wasn't in the script. Facepalming, he realized he was cooked. Cut to the palace. Romain set down his drink, looking grim. Too risky for the regular order, the king mused. Spies are everywhere. I can't trust them. Anyone holding a borrowed sword isn't worthy of my trust. Alan's past pleas echoed. Your Majesty, look at the big picture. Coddling Kalyan won't save him. One wrong move leads to total ruin. Every act of love closes another door for him. Rivals will riot. Is that why you're being so paranoid? Romain gripped his cup. I get it. Never again. He softened. I just want the brothers at breakfast. I want to see them joking around. Alan forced a smile. A blessed day for the house, Your Majesty. Back in the present, Malcolm looked nervous. Is His Highness bouncing already? The protagonist gripped the reins, looking down. Duty calls. Cairo handles the cleanup. The villains were being hauled off to the capital to face judgment. Well, except the one who punched his ticket early and never made it out. Norton, the guy trapped by the Blue Warbler, got a pass. Officially listed as deceased on the paperwork. He was actually en route to his chateau to reunite with his wife. Malcolm stammered, can I ask? What happens to me? The protagonist kept it real. Debts or not, you traded illegal artifacts. That's a felony, plain and simple. Malcolm hung his head, admitting the guilt. I know, it was a grave mistake. However, the protagonist cut in, you were the MVP in taking down a traitor to the kingdom. The throne pays its debts. Loyalty buys mercy. From today on, you're the head butler of the Latlan estate. Tears streamed down Malcolm's face. Your Highness, really. I'll serve with my life. I'm so sorry. The protagonist pointed a finger, grinning. Don't make me regret this. Why me, he wondered, as they headed back to Susfania's place. But the news was already traveling fast. Ale lost everything, titles, perks, freedom locked away for life, while Ayla the blue warbler faced the hangman's noose. Then came the chilling observation the streets were carpeted in Renacida leaves today. But here's the kicker. They call them leaves, but they're actually thorns, a desert cactus evolution, designed to suck every drop of moisture from the air. They paved the capital square with these things for one grim reason: to soak up the mess, so the pristine white tiles don't get stained red with blood. Meanwhile, Randall was tearing into his meal, treating dinner like an interrogation. He was subtly grilling Franz, fishing for a connection between his mother and the woman who tried to assassinate Callian. Franz didn't blink, claiming those suspicions were total garbage. Randall took a slow, calculated sip of water, eyes closed, and dropped a bomb he'd heard. Callian had gone cold turkey on the wine since leaving. Franz shot back. What is he nostalgic for the smell of booze on his breath? Randall silently wiped his mouth, dropped the napkin like a gavel, and replied, definitely not. He stood up, hand over his heart, and delivered the ultimatum. Now that the drunken antics are over, it's time to master the art of silence. Franz was so shook, his fork clattered onto the plate. Isn't it quiet enough already? Cut to the road. Kiri was stressing. My prince, this is sketching me out. Callian hopped off his horse, staring at the mess. A landslide. Cursed rain. Hands on his hips, he demanded an ETA on the cleanup. The answer was a hard no. Best bet was a detour. He did the mental math. They'd already wasted time in Latran, and now this rock pile. This road trip was turning into a marathon. Note to self, next time he's back in Kairos, he's installing a portal system. Suddenly, Sia grabbed his hand, tugging him along. She invited him to crash at her village. A village? Callian raised an eyebrow. A village. He grinned. You mean the elf village? That's where she, Luca, and the elder call home. She kept beaming, offering him a place to crash for the night, calling him commander. Just one night, then he could bounce in the morning. Callian looked at her amused. Fair enough, that's the smartest idea he'd heard all day. Destination set: Elf Village. Then it hit him. Since when did I get promoted to commander? He scooped Sia up and she shot back. You've always been the boss. Moments later, they breached the village perimeter. Callian looked around, genuinely floored. Wow, this place is a vibe. The elf village was otherworldly. He never imagined he'd actually set foot here. Suddenly, Jer materialized out of nowhere, demanding to know which one of them was the human king. Callian thought, what is up with this guy? Aloud, he said, that's a heavy title, but nobody here ranks that high. He clarified that if Jer was looking for the leader of their squad, that would be him. Jer introduced himself as the village elder and immediately dropped a quest request: the human king. Callian corrected the intro, insisting he needed the full context before agreeing to anything. Jer spilled the tea. Recently, 3 elves left the village to check out nearby human towns. They ghosted. 10 days, no show. He sent 2 scouts to track them down, and now those scouts are MIA too. He needed help. The locals here are clueless about how the human kingdom operates. Jer reached his hand out. Callian's internal monologue kicked in. Pushy much. Is this an elf thing? He asked. So 5 elves vanish and you want me to play detective? Why me? Jer's logic was simple. Because you are the king of humans. Callian facepalmed mentally. This guy was a broken record. He countered. Nope, not a king. Prince. Prince of Kairos. Jer waved it off like it was a minor detail. Before he could keep rambling, Callian cut in, hand raised. No, it matters. Huge difference between a king and a prince. Different worlds, buddy. Jer shrugged. Fine prince then. A prince. Look, he wouldn't be asking for a favor if he didn't have something to trade. You're heading to the Siegfried estate. Yeah, Callian nodded, mentioning that the human routes take forever, but he knew elves had the forest cheat codes. It could slash his travel time by 25%. Callian's brain went into overdrive. Forest paths. That 2-month slog. Minus the delays. If these shortcuts were legit, the run to Siegfried's turf would be a 2-week speedrun. He lit up, flashing a thumbs up and shouting, 5 elves. He put on a dramatic face. Oh, the poor souls. Absolutely count me in. The prince is at your service. Jer finally cracked a smile. Later, Kiri was scanning the map, looking confused, reporting 0 evidence of the slave trade the prince was worried about. The forest sits between 2 cities, Narika and Stein. They spotted a ton of mercenaries, but everyone looked clean, no criminal vibes. Callian noted that was actually good news. Kiri, however, was deep in thought. He'd been betting the elves' disappearance was the work of shady merchants, but the vibe was totally off. The MC didn't miss a beat, declaring they'd stick to the blueprint and hit up the nearest towns first. Stein was sitting pretty right on their route. Since both spots were roughly the same size, it was a no-brainer to start with the closer one. Duran chimed in, dropping some intel about bad blood brewing between the two towns. The protagonist raised an eyebrow. "Oh, is that right? Their lords are around the same age," Duran explained. "Might be an ego thing." A knowing smirk tugged at the protagonist's lips. "Well, a little healthy rivalry never hurt anyone. It drives progress." He figured he'd scope out the scene and snag a new blade while they were at it. Soon after, they rolled out. Fast forward to the shop, the blacksmith crossed his massive arms, shaking his head. "We're fresh out of swords." The MC blinked, looking completely baffled as he gestured at the racks around them. "But, you're literally running a weapon shop. How do you have zero inventory? Is everything sold out?" The smith sized him up, eyes narrowing. "You look a little scrawny for a mercenary." "I'm a mage," the protagonist corrected, cool as ice. "He is the swordsman." As he spoke, he jerked a thumb toward Kyrie. "And for the record, mercenaries aren't the only ones in the market for steel." The blacksmith sighed, pointing vaguely to the side. "Look, I'm going to give it to you straight. You're wasting your breath here. You should know that every decent piece of steel has been secretly funneled to the mercenaries up at the castle. The stockpiles got seized. If you're hunting for gear, the castle is basically your only shot." The protagonist shook his head. "I'm not chasing a payday or a reward. I just need a blade for personal use." "What about Narika past the forest? Maybe I'll try my luck there." The blacksmith snorted. "Don't bother. Same story over there." That's when it clicked. The protagonist face-palmed, eyes darkening as he muttered, "This elf." Kyrie tilted his head. "Your Highness," the MC's voice dropped. "The lords of both cities are hoarding mercenaries and weapons. It's painfully obvious war is brewing. And the elf elder, his village is smack in the crossfire between these two powder kegs." His motives were finally making sense. He glanced at the letter in his hand, then snapped an order to Share. "Send these dispatches immediately. To the lords of Stein and Narika. It'll throw a wrench in their plans, just long enough for the missing elves to slip back home." He turned on his heel, voice cold. "My team rolls out at first light. You better scramble to honor your end of the bargain, and guide us to the forest paths." Cher panicked, shouting, "Wait, what are you saying?" The elf buried his face in his hands. "You mean, the war?" Before he could spiral, the MC cut him off. "I was ready to look the other way because you're an elf, but you played me. You knew this war was coming and kept your mouth shut." A dangerous smile curled the MC's lips, locking eyes with the stunned elf. "Turns out those 5 missing elves of yours, they didn't just vanish. They headed straight for Stein Castle to hustle as merchants. Even the locals can smell the war coming a mile away. There's zero chance you, the leader, were clueless. You used that to your advantage, knowing a prince couldn't afford to get tangled up in this mess." Cher let out a defeated sigh. "We don't need your secret paths anymore," the protagonist declared. "The deal is dead." And with that, he strode toward the door. Cher lunged forward, hand outstretched. "Wait, please. Are you seriously just going to walk away and watch as war tears through my kingdom?" The protagonist paused, cracking the door open just a sliver. "People fight for a reason. It won't last forever. But if this village actually means something to you, then step up and protect it yourself instead of relying on cheap tricks." He slammed the door behind him. Later, Kiri broke the silence. "The Bryson merchants are the root of this. They're the only ones crazy enough to run caravans out this far. But they're stuck in limbo because of the chaos at the Latlawn estate." The MC rested his chin, in his hand, eyes narrowing. "It's him again. Lanon Bryson." He connected the dots. "Stein and Narika are sitting on dead soil, growing wheat. There is impossible, leaving the citizens hostage, forced to buy from Bryson. So, when Bryson suddenly cut the supply line, Stein's people panicked and rushed to Narika just to survive the winter. But Narika, they saw an opportunity and jacked up the prices, sparking a war." He crossed his arms, disgusted. "First they corner the food market, then they choke it off like it's a game. Is this some twisted ego boost? Do they not realize this doesn't just hurt the lords, it sentences the common people to starvation?" Moments later, Cher appeared, head hanging low. He was begging for forgiveness. I know Luca dragged you into this mess," Cher admitted, voice trembling. "That's the spark that ignited the war between the cities. I couldn't come clean. I was terrified of how you'd react. This is all on me. Luca is my son, and those missing elves, they're tied up in his schemes. I was scared you'd turn your back on us if you knew the truth. Please, I'm begging you to forgive us, forgive my son." The protagonist stared him down, silence filling the room. Cher swallowed hard. "I know I have no right to ask, but we need you." Their gear was trash, completely inadequate for the nightmare they were facing. The man started begging, but before he could even finish his plea, the MC silenced him, shoving a stack of letters into his chest. "Take these to the city, now." The guy blinked, totally blindsided. "Let's see if you're useful for more than just hauling wheat," the MC muttered, his voice cold. "Drop the intel, then we meet." Cher gasped, eyes wide. Wait, you're actually gonna help us? The protagonist raised a hand, stopping the celebration cold. Don't get it twisted, this isn't charity. The elf reached out anyway. Accept my gratitude regardless, the elf insisted. We keep our promises. We never forget a debt. Inside, the MC's mind was already racing. Alan and Breeson. This is getting messy. He was becoming a liability. He toyed with the ring on his finger, eyes dark. Master, it's time to take out the trash. Cut to the Breeson estate in Sires. A servant bowed low. My lord. Towering over him was Marquis Evan, the patriarch of House Breeson. Heading straight back after the meeting, sir, the subordinate asked nervously. We can keep the carriage running. No need, Evan grunted. I'm staying. The servant froze, confused. The Marquis strode inside, barking an order. Escort the guests to my office. Immediately. Yes, my lord. But internally, panic. Guests. The schedule was empty. We weren't expecting a soul. The vibe was off. The man never missed a council meeting, and he never took meetings in his private office. Who the hell is in there? Inside, Alan extended a hand, a smirk playing on his lips. We haven't technically met face-to-face, have we? Indeed, Evan replied, voice icy. If you hadn't set this up through the captain, I would have prepared a more fitting welcome. Alan shrugged. I dropped in unannounced to save you the headache. This won't take long. Just a little something I think you'll find intriguing. Nearby, the second son shifted, eyeing the royal guest with visible nerves. Evan paused, mid-sip, caught the look, and locked eyes with the boy. Evan closed his eyes, disgusted. Rynan, please. That brat doesn't have the spine for a stunt like this. Alan crossed his arms, amused. Wow, low opinion of your own kid. But I've got something here that screams louder than your assumptions. He tossed the letters onto the desk. Evan's eyes snapped open. Silence. Then bam, Evan slammed his hand down on the papers. What is the meaning of this? Let's cut the act, Alan said smoothly. You decided to axe Renan ages ago. He leaned in. This isn't really the concern of a mere court magician, is it? Alan tapped his chin, feigning thought. Funny. Hearing that coming from a glorified thug, Evan's face went purple. You dare insult me, in my own house. Energy surged around him. He smashed his fist down, cracking the table. Here we go, Alan thought. Masters of the sword turn their words into weapons. Sharp. Cutting. But those who master magic, we play a different game. Alan began to pool the mana deep within his core. Made your choice, Alan asked. You're not a threat to me. But hey, try your luck if you're feeling brave. In a heartbeat, raw power exploded from him. My weapon isn't steel, he thought. It's fear. That primal, gut-wrenching terror of death. It lives in everything. Alan placed a hand over his heart, acting innocent. I'm not as battle-hungry as my student, you know. But for your own safety, watch your manners. Evan glared, pure irritation etched on his face. Alan flashed a toxic smile. So who's the alpha here? Internally, he was impressed. He withstood an 8th Circle Mage's aura. He didn't get that Swordmaster title for nothing. I shouldn't have slept on him. Alan raised a finger. I'm sure you can discipline your own kid, he said. But what if I offered you a smarter play? A way to quietly cut him out of the inner circle. It echoed the protagonist's plan from earlier. Tell him you want the Merchant Guild. When the truth about Celeste came out, it wasn't just scandal. The Breeson Merchant Guild took a massive hit. The only thing keeping it on life support, Renan's grinding. But Breeson is a house of knights, not shopkeepers. That guild was your second son's pet project. The failure with no talent for the blade. You're probably already figuring out how to amputate that limb. It's bleeding money and staining the family honor. A double liability. Alan shrugged. Perhaps. But why do something that gets you zero return on investment? Evan narrowed his eyes. So I just play right into your prince's hands. Why would I give him that leverage? Alan smirked. I knew you'd say that. He shuts that theory down instantly. The buyer isn't going to be His Highness. Remember, the protagonist already made it clear he wasn't opening his own wallet for this. They've already got the perfect mark lined up. Back in the present, Evan raises an eyebrow. Is that a fact? So, who's taking the fall? Alan drops the bomb. The head honcho of the second largest merchant guild in series. The guy has every reason to want to crush his rival. Think about it. All he needs is a solid excuse to sell. And he's definitely not going to lowball him on the offer. Meanwhile, Renan is out in his garden, watering a plant like nothing's wrong. It's a beauty. He strokes the leaves, smiling like a creep, and whispers, Daddy's been real busy lately. But hey, no need to stress, he's safe now. He figures Hale getting arrested probably ticked the guy off. But so far, zero blowback. Maybe the guy wasn't dumb enough to spill his guts about everything he heard. For a split second, he actually considers liquidating everything and bolting to Tencel before anyone connects the dots. But that place is a total nightmare. Luckily, he cut ties with Hale just in the nick of time. Suddenly, snap. He stares in horror at a broken leaf. He screams, my poor little baby. He looks genuinely devastated. Then, his mind races. There are other lords trading with Tencel, but they aren't his problem right now. A chill runs down his spine. He feels a presence. He spins around. What? Why are you here? But before he can react, bam, he gets jumped and slammed to the floor. By morning, the rumors are spreading through the capital like wildfire. The Holy Kingdom of Tencel just scored a massive haul of divine artifacts, and the man who made it all happen, Renan. Currently, he's rotting behind bars, gripping the iron and screaming, "Do you have any idea who I am? My father will destroy you for this." Not long after, he vanishes from his cell. His dad, Marquis Brizon, tears the kingdom apart looking for him, but it's a cold trail. At first, the Marquis points fingers at Alan and Melfier, but the evidence clears them completely. Back in the present, the MC stares at his ring. A voice echoes from the gem. The guild takeover is in full swing, and Melfier is handling the messy details exactly as planned. The requested items, already delivered. His prince just needs to say the word if he needs anything else. The protagonist nods. Much appreciated, mentor. Just then, Cher walks up. You ready for this? The mother tree has spoken. The path is open. Soon he'll be walking the forest trails. The protagonist flashes a smile. Excellent. Let's move. Cher suggests his son Luca should act as the guide. The MC raises a hand. Thanks, but no thanks. He'd rather roll with Shay. He shouts over, Yo Shay, you cool with leading us through the woods? She looks shocked, then a smile breaks across her face. Absolutely. He leans in close, dropping his voice. You sure you're good coming back solo? She tells him to relax. She could navigate this place blindfolded. He nods. All right then, let's bounce. But then he pauses. Hold up. She's speaking. Perfectly clearly now. He stares at Shay. She catches his gaze. What's up, Commander? Something on your mind? Right then. He notices she's clutching a stone. The protagonist snatches it from her hand. Surprise colors his voice. What is this? Did you swipe this along with the holy relics? He shoots a look at Luca, who nervously avoids eye contact, and stammers that he doesn't know. He doesn't remember a thing. Arsène steps up to the protagonist. Your Highness, could this be another relic? The MC's mind races. The item found on Luca when he got back to the village. That black stone sitting next to the other artifacts. There's a solid chance this is part of the set. Or maybe, Duran cuts in. It feels too dangerous to be a holy relic. The scent of blood on it is overwhelming. The protagonist keeps his eyes locked on the stone, thinking, exactly what I was afraid of. Arsène might be blind to it, but the bad vibes radiating from this thing are insane. It's leaking stolen life force and blood energy. He says it out loud. The owner of this stone didn't just die, they were murdered. We need to dig into this. He tosses the stone back to Shay. While you're holding that, we need to keep a line of communication open. She asks, wait, isn't this Luca's? He shakes his head. Not anymore. It's mine now. She nods slowly. Got it. Message received, Chief. After that, she smiles, promising to keep it safe. She'll hand it back the second they reach the end of the path. Just then, Duran leans in, whispering to the protagonist. Your Highness, about the girl. That stuff, she said earlier. Does that mean she can actually see the future? The MC recalls she claimed it wasn't foresight. But he's not buying it. For this kid, the future seems to be arriving a little ahead of schedule. He thinks, the future, time distortion, and a stone that cancels out skills. This has to be connected to the time axis. Flashback to Renan in the garden, staring at that broken branch. Then it hit him the prophecy about the roses bursting into bloom soon. His mind drifted to one name, Callian. Now that he had finally ditched Renan, he was free to focus. He slid the pendant from his sleeve shut, his eyes tight, and channeled his will. The pearls flared to life, and right before his eyes, fresh blossoms erupted along the withered branch. Randall brushed his fingers against the petals, whispering that it was a sight for sore eyes, so he'd let the magic linger a bit longer. Meanwhile, the protagonist dropped near the tree, centering every ounce of energy deep in his chest. Total silence. Then boom, a voice broke through, offering congratulations. Your Highness, you didn't gain a magic circle, you gained a powerhouse aura. He gripped his head, practically tearing his hair out in frustration. Spare me the sarcasm, just yell at me instead. He turned to his master, pleading. Master, why is this happening? I'm the one suffering here. You think it's easy to unlearn a lifetime of sword instincts, even for a split second. So my mana refuses to form a circle and morphs into aura instead. He knew the theory, mana and aura, were two sides of the same coin, but still. I'm overflowing with mana, so why does my body subconsciously twist it into aura, make it make sense? Damn it, the teacher didn't buy the confusion excuse. The ultimatum was clear. Don't even think about returning to Ceres until you crack this code. Defeated, he cast his gaze upward, staring into the abyss of the night sky, wondering if the answer was even out there. He was walking a path he knew, trusting that every road eventually leads to a destination. Suddenly, Shay was waving frantically. Chief, look, we made it. It's the edge of the forest. Squinting against the blinding sun, the protagonist stepped into the clearing. His jaw dropped. So, this is the Elf Kingdom, the Siegfried Duchy. Shay called out, a bittersweet smile playing on her lips. I guess this is where we part ways. She extended the spirit stone. Here, take it back. The MC blinked, surprised, then stopped her. Wait, one question before you go. Do you actually have to go back there? The elder didn't exactly roll out the red carpet. About you being our guide. Even I, a total stranger, could feel the tension. They treated you like a plague. I can't imagine how bad it gets when no one's watching. If it's serious, I can petition the Sisfonian will for you. Shay's fist tightened. The protagonist started to dismiss her. For now you can, but she cut him off. You're right. They hate me. But the World Tree says, this is just who I am. Just because I'm built different doesn't mean I'm broken. Even if I say I'm fine. It doesn't change the fact that I'm an elf. The MC stared at her stunned before a genuine grin spread across his face. Guess I've still got a lot to learn, he thought. Shay pressed the stone into his hand. Don't worry about me, leader. I get it. All right then. He reached out affectionately, messing up her hair. We'll cross paths again, she beamed at him. I'm counting on it. And, thanks for saving my life. Looming ahead, the colossal walls of the Sisfanian domain pierced the sky. The protagonist spurred his horse forward, eyeballing the massive gates. Every prince of Ceres must be thanking their lucky stars. The Siegfrieds never wanted the throne. He glanced back at Ian. Hey, yes, your highness. While we're here, you're off the clock. No need to wait on me hand and foot. Being the target of 20 killers was bad enough. Inside those walls, I bet the list of people who want me dead is double that. Your shift is over. Ian blinked, then smirked. Your highness, I can handle a little crowd control. He placed a hand over his heart, smiling coolly. The MC recalled Ian catching throwing knives with his bare hands while he was unconscious. A monster in human skin. He stared, then chuckled. My bad, Ian. I underestimated you. Later, the protagonist stepped out of the shower, towel drying his hair. Draping the towel over his shoulders, he let out a long sigh. Thought the trip was done. He flashed back to Ian, tapping the map. That was just the front door, Ian had said. The actual castle, still a 2-day trek inside. Who builds a castle the size of a metropolis? Collapsing onto the bed, he muttered. Guess I'm meeting the big boss today. Suck it up. Whining won't shrink the map. His eyes drifted to the magic stone on the nightstand, and Shay's voice echoed in his head. Bingo. His mana might have mutated into aura, but the core vibe, exactly the same. He'd always treated them like oil and water, but he was wrong. Since his body was addicted to converting mana into aura, he wouldn't fight it. He'd flip the script, use the aura as gasoline for his magic. Focusing, he ignited the energy in his chest. Outside the door, Arsene froze. A blinding radiance seeped through the cracks. Arsene thought, that mana. It was trickling before. Now, it's roaring like a floodgate burst open. And that gentle warmth gone. This is pure raw power. A bone-chilling frost radiates from the mana, yet the prince's arsenal runs bottomless. Seriously, does this guy even have a power ceiling? Staring down the glowing runic rings, a wave of pure hype washes over him. Finally, fourth circle magic unlocked. Just as he thinks the mana crisis is handled, reality throws another curveball. Ian's voice cuts through the air. Over here, move. Your Highness. The shout snaps him back to a grim realization, including himself only 6 legitimate swordmasters currently walk this continent. And in this high-stakes game of blades, the predator always scents the prey. The stronger aura instinctively detects the weaker one. Moments later, Duke Slayman thunders forward on his mount, voice booming like a cannon. Welcome, Your Highness. That was one hell of a trek. You must be wiped out. Before the Duke even finishes his sentence, the protagonist's internal radar pings. Duke Slayman, the second deadliest swordmaster alive. He's leagues above my current level. Masking the tension, the protagonist flashes a diplomatic smile and speaks. It's been way too long, Duke. Slayman pauses, eyes narrowing slightly as he assesses the young royal. The prince. The protagonist knows it instantly, his cover is blown. How Slayman stammers, stunned. The protagonist thinks, he clocked me as a swordmaster immediately. Slayman's jaw practically hits the floor. How is this even possible? You've leveled up insanely fast since we last met. Wow. I'm looking at a real warrior now. The protagonist lets out a confident chuckle. Think so, Slayman shakes his head impressed. I'd barely recognize you. The vibe around you has completely shifted. The protagonist smirks, playing it cool. Indeed, just a minor glow-up, nothing too dramatic. Slayman bursts into a hearty belly laugh. Kid, I definitely wouldn't call that a minor transformation. He gestures forward. Let's roll. I'll escort you personally to the castle. Moments later, they're saddled up and moving. Slayman glances over. I gotta hand it to that apprentice mage of yours. He really scouted an elite talent. A top-tier spellcaster and the 6th-ranked swordmaster on the continent. That's a total cheat code, the protagonist replies. Knowing it's useless to hide his stats from a pro, he nods. Regardless of titles or rank, those years were a grind, but they paid off. I might not see your aura with my eyes, but I felt that pressure instantly. Insane progress. Your mentor must be having a blast watching you turn into a powerhouse. The protagonist shrugs. I wouldn't bet on it. He's pretty buried in his own research. Slayman nods. Well, the man's earned his focus. Slayman offers a respectful bow. I'd love to hang around and chat all day, Your Highness, but, unfortunately, duty calls. Got inspections to run. Hope you don't mind. The protagonist waves him off casually. Don't sweat it. I'm the one who showed up ahead of schedule, remember? Slayman pauses. You're heading out at dawn, right? Safe travels, Your Highness. Can't wait to hear the legends you'll write. Scene shift. Alan stares moodily into the swirling depths of his wine glass. Never thought I'd see Your Majesty needing a drink this badly, Alan murmurs. Looks like Prince Callian made it safely too. The Elven territory. King Rumen takes a slow sip. Alan presses. Worried about your son, or is it something deeper? Rumian closes his eyes, exhaling heavily. I've been agonizing over the timing. To finally ignite Callian's potential, Alan raises an eyebrow. You're talking about the succession war, aren't you? The king nods. Callian is the final piece. He's the last of my sons to face the rite of passage. Once he returns, the board is set. All three will be eligible for the throne. Randall plays a quiet defensive game, but he guards his cards so closely I can't read a single thought in his head. Franz has raw power, maybe the most of them all, but he's a wild card, stubborn and reckless. And Callian, he's barely stepping onto the stage. How can a father not worry? Alan swirls his glass, offering a cold solution. If that's the case, declare the weakest link as the heir. Let the other two wolves tear him apart in the struggle for the crown. Problem solved. Alan leans back. Though I'd bet good money, Randall will stay in the shadows, waiting for Prince Callian to make his move. Eventually, Your Majesty, the masks will crack, and you'll see their true intentions. But until that breaking point, you have to stay silent no matter who you're rooting for. Don't let tomorrow's ghosts haunt you today. When Callian finally unleashes his fire, it will burn for those who've actually earned it. Meanwhile, deep underground, the protagonist steps into the abyss. This tunnel is endless. He's been marching for hours with zero sign of an exit. Just how deep does this rabbit hole go? Suddenly, a flashbang of pure white light. He flinches, throwing a hand up to shield his eyes from the glare. As his vision clears, the cave walls vanish, replaced by a sprawling field of flowers. What on earth? He glances sideways, heart skipping a beat. Pure, unadulterated mana shattered every known limit, radiating a killing intent so heavy it could paralyze a soul just for glancing its way. His knuckles turned white as he clenched his fist. This wasn't just raw willpower, it was dominance. Instinctively, he dropped to one knee, paying his ultimate respects. O almighty Cispanian. His mind raced. This wasn't a vision. It was the legendary dragon herself in human form. Cut to the village, the crowd stood frozen, jaws on the floor, watching a blinding pillar of light pierce the heavens. Back in the realm, the protagonist bowed low. Great Cispanian, he questioned if a mere flicker of her desire was the catalyst for this encounter. Why drop the disguise now? Suddenly she reached out, her hand drifting toward him. The MC gasped internally. The crushing weight, that suffocating magical gravity, it just vanished instantly. Cispanian's voice echoed, claiming a child had arrived, a stranger to this timeline, a vessel carrying memories of a distinct, far-off reality. He had taken her blessing and forged it into a lethal blade. She studied him, intrigued by the desperation driving his actions. That curiosity pulled her right to his side. She whispered, "You were summoned." Meanwhile, the spectators, gaping at the energy beam tearing through the sky, were losing their minds. "What is that?" Arsene shouted, right as the prince's rite of passage was kicking off. What kind of cosmic interruption was this? Alan's eyes narrowed. History has no record of this, he murmured. Prince Callian. Suddenly, a hand landed on his head, a voice telling him to check his reflection. Was he seriously stressing over the brat? Alan spun around, eyes wide. "Father, weren't you supposed to be inspecting the estate?" The old man smirked. "I'm already back," his son yelled. "You expect me to buy that? You left last night. Are you speedrunning travel now?" The crowd watched the family drama, totally bewildered. Entering the frame, Veronica Manassel, Alan's granddaughter, stepped up, greeting the stunned assembly with perfect poise. She bowed to Alan, introducing herself, while Rachel Grace, Alan's daughter-in-law, stood silently in the background. Back in the spiritual realm, Cispanian extended a hand. "Let me see." She gently touched the protagonist's face, instantly downloading every event that led him to this moment. She nodded. "The picture is clear." He stared back, watching her lips move, but the sound was static. The MC panicked. "What's happening?" She was definitely speaking, but the audio was corrupted. He couldn't catch a syllable. She crossed her arms. "You didn't hear a word, did you? That was intentional. I blocked it." He pressed her. "Is Serenity pulling the strings here?" She paused. "Serenity. Yeah, that's the name." The protagonist watched her reaction, mind racing. Serenity, the Queen of Gods, the deity who brawled with the Voidbringer during the Great War, standing shoulder to shoulder with the 8 heroes of Eld. He continued, "But lore says she went into eternal stasis the moment she sealed the Voidbringer's tomb. She couldn't possibly." Cispanian cut him off. "Sleep doesn't equal death. Her essence is very much alive." Did he think she was gone just because she became pure will? He needed to focus on the mysteries that actually mattered. He nodded. "Fine. Let's talk about the kingdom of Secretia and the artifact they guarded, the time axis. He watched her expression shift, confirming his suspicion. He demanded to know why. Carries was so desperate to seize it. She answered, but again, static noise. The protagonist ground his teeth in frustration. Why am I being gatekept from this info? She explained. His impatience was clashing with Serenity's design. He blinked, stunned. She warned that he was hunting for spoilers about the afterlife. If he learned the truth too early, the entire fabric of reality could unravel. He scoffed, so a literal god was redacting information for his own safety. Did that mean the situation required him to step in personally? She confirmed it. He chilled. Divine intervention. This was way above his pay grade. I need to know how the time axis ties into this mess. He tightened his grip, then declared he had one final question, one burning doubt. Cispanian signaled for him to proceed. Did my brother use the time axis to resurrect me? She looked shocked, then almost laughed. He was a king before he was a brother. Do you take him for a fool? Who would shatter the cosmic order just for you? The protagonist froze. So Chase wasn't the one who triggered the artifact. To rewrite the timeline, he looked down, processing the twist. Then Cispanian reached out again, pointing to his pocket. Show me what you're hiding. He stared blankly, then realized. You mean this rock? He handed over the stone. She inspected it closely, her eyes narrowing. This? She locked eyes with him, handing it back. Never let this leave your side. He hadn't unlocked every secret he came for, but let's be real, this was merely the opening scene of a much wilder saga. Destiny would handle the timeline. He just needed to level up and return when he was truly ready. Then, poof, she dissolved into thin air, leaving him stranded in the silent cave. That same day, the sky turned black as a massive swarm of carrier pigeons took flight, rushing intel back to their masters. Suddenly, a blinding pillar of light, radiating with such intensity it could be spotted from the distant walls of Siegfried, erupted straight into the heavens, marking the exact moment Prince Callian breached the abandoned Cispanian lair. Watching the frenzy, Sleeman buried his face in his hand, muttering that he never imagined he'd witness that much traffic clogging up the skyline, all at once. The kicker. This entire spy network had been camping out on his turf the whole time. Just then, Demaria stepped up, telling him to snap out of it, father. He let out a heavy sigh, pivoting slightly to whisper, what an insane spectacle. It felt like a view he hadn't earned the right to admire. But she dropped a truth bomb. God-tier power is basically a magnet for jealous eyes. No matter whose inbox those birds are hitting, a clash is inevitable. They needed to get to the bottom of this fast.